Chapter 1658. Cyril's expression froze completely. His eyes widened as he stared at Gloria. This timid and self-abased young girl who didn't even dare to show her face had unknowingly become so heartless and terrifying. Just as she said, all she had to do now was to do nothing and watch him get beaten to death by those who wanted to curry favor with Master Rome. Then, she would become the only successor of family Moreton and obtain everything she wanted. Gloria, do you think I'm dead for sure this time? You have to know that I'm the second young master of family Moreton, and this is Chaos City. No matter how strong those people are, they wouldn't dare to kill me. Cyril clenched his fists and looked at Gloria. I believe that. Grandfather might use family Moreton's influence to protect you on account that you're his biological son, but do you think you'll still be on the list of successors if he does that? Gloria smiled at Cyril. You're the second young master of family Moreton now, so such a stupid thing will only be on your head. But if you become the head of family Moreton and commit such a stupid thing again, it will be a disaster for family Moreton. Cyril's face turned pale instantly, and his clenched fists loosened weakly. In the past, his father didn't have a choice. Even if he made a mistake, he wouldn't punish him too much. But it was different now. Now, people were comparing Gloria and Hill Buffett. As the eldest granddaughters of the four big families, there were too many things about them that made people think of them. This girl who had just stepped into the business world for a few months had already made a name for herself with Suede. Hill Buffett had proven that Ian Buffett's judgment was right. Women were not inferior to men. They could even do better. His father was a stubborn man, but since he promised to give Gloria a chance, and even gave her the textile industry, he had a second choice. Cyril was completely flustered. He took 2 steps forward and said in a trembling voice, Gloria, please help me. I was wrong. I promise I won't target you again, Uncle Cyril. Before the sun sets, I suggest you leave this place quickly and think of a way. Gloria interrupted Cyril mercilessly. She then turned to the door and said, see our guest out. 2 strong orc security guards came in and carried Cyril away on a stretcher. Gloria looked at the door, but there was no joy on her face. Mars stood quietly at the side and didn't say anything either. The silence lasted for a long time before Gloria said softly, am I being too heartless by doing this? My lady, you are a kind person. All the things Cyril has done to your family over the years, you didn't kick him today because you are his family. Mars shook his head. Grandfather, everyone has to be responsible for their own actions. Master is a reasonable person. Gloria thought for a moment and smiled again. She stood up and walked towards the door. I'm going to check on the training of the new employees. The new batch of elves are smart and skillful. Even if they haven't been trained as tailors, they learn very quickly. In just a few days, their skills are already on par with the old tailors. Their speed is also much faster than normal tailors. Mars quickly caught up with her and answered with a smile. Elves are indeed the beloved children of nature. They have a unique advantage and talent when it comes to craftsmanship. We really have to thank the night elves for getting such excellent employees. Gloria was pleasantly surprised. She walked a few steps and stopped. She looked at Mars and said, has the new salary system been finalized? Capable people will get more. We have to make sure that the excellent employees get paid what they deserve. It's basically finalized. According to your instructions, the clothes will be produced in the new factory according to the assembly line method. Different workshops will be responsible for different processes. Every employee will be responsible for a part of the clothes. The salary will be calculated according to the piece. The more work, the more pay. Mars nodded and said, after dismissing most of the old tailors, our labor cost has decreased a lot. Also, from the past few days of testing, the efficiency has increased significantly. It's enough to meet the current orders from Suede. Your method of reform is truly wonderful. It has solved the biggest problem of expansion and development. That's good. Gloria nodded slightly and continued to walk forward. She thought to herself, Mr. Meg's method is really amazing. How are the cloth sales channels and the farms? Gloria asked again after walking for a while. According to your instructions, the cloth sales channels in various places have been disbanded on a large scale. Only the core sales team in each city has been retained. The cloth shops in various places are also clearing their inventory. After deducting the redundancy benefits, we have received a considerable amount of cash. As for the farms, we have closed a group of farms that were in a mess and had been losing money for a long time. We sold a few farms that were profitable and only kept a group of farms that mainly grew cotton. The first funds to expand the cotton planting scale have been distributed to the farms. During this time, many farm owners who had their farms closed or sold wanted to come to you, but they were all stopped. Many of them were from family Moreton. Mars looked at Gloria and asked in confusion, but, Miss, if you want to disband the cloth shops, why do you keep the core sales team in each city? Why do you want to expand the cotton planting scale? Family Moreton's textile industry has been plagued with corruption for many years. In order to expand the market, they opened shops everywhere without caring about the cost. Many shops were less than 100 meters apart. The number of frontline sales staff was huge, and the corruption was serious. The monthly expenses were huge. All these years, family Moreton's other businesses had been providing for them to barely maintain their dignity. Gloria calmly said, Grandfather has already decided to shut down the entire textile industry, but he only gave me 3 months' time. I want to keep these industries. If I don't have the determination to cut my losses, I will only let them linger on for 3 months. Back then, Master started out in the textile industry, and was once known as the King of Textiles. The reason for family Moreton's textile industry mess is very complicated. There are internal and external reasons. The wrong decision to open the shops back then was one of them. The loss of control of the frontline shops was also one of them. But more importantly, the Roth Empire's textile industry has been developing rapidly in the past 10 years. With the cheap labor and the huge textile industry system, they have occupied a huge market share on the Norland continent. Family Moreton couldn't even keep their market share in Chaos City. Mars sighed and said, Master has personally led a few reforms in the past few years, but they all ended in failure. It is extremely difficult to turn the losses into profits in just 3 months. Chapter 1659. Get out of the way, let me in. Do you know who I am? How dare you stop me, I'm going to make you all scram. Cyril shouted hysterically as he looked at the tightly shut door and the 2 orc guards who had just carried him out. I'm a guard, I'm depressed all day long, my salary is only enough for breakfast, love has nothing to do with me, I'm just a silly guard, I don't know who you are. One of the orcs who looked honest shook his head. The other guard took out a bag of bear biscuits from somewhere and started eating while muttering, I'm a guard, I like to eat bear biscuits. Cyril clenched his fists and looked at the 2 guards who didn't care about him at all. He was so angry that smoke was coming out of his ears, but there was nothing he could do. This was Gloria's factory, and these people were Gloria's people, he really couldn't do anything to them. Gloria, I've seen through you. As long as I can get through this, when I become the head of family Moreton, I'll definitely make your family suffer. Cyril got into the carriage angrily. Master, where are we going now? The coachman asked carefully. Cyril sat in the carriage and scratched his head for a long time before saying in a deep voice, to Mamis. If it's the normal way to rebuild family Moreton's textile system, even grandfather couldn't do it, let alone an inexperienced person like me. Gloria smiled and shook her head, the reason I closed all the production-related businesses, such as spinning and weaving, is to make family Moreton's textile industry into a light asset business. The sales network that has been operating for decades is the most valuable part of the entire industry chain. This is also the reason why I kept the core sales team in each place. But if the production line is shut down, we will have nothing to sell, and the sales network will become useless? Mars asked. Mr. Meg's textile factory has been operating for a while. I went to check it out a few days ago. The annual output is more than all the textile factories in our family combined. The quality of the cloth is also better. Gloria smiled. Are you planning to cooperate with Mr. Meg? Using our sales channels to help him sell cloth? Mars was surprised. He had long known about the cooperation between Gloria and Meg. He had even personally communicated with Mr. Meg several times. He was impressed by Mr. Meg's wisdom and unique business views. He even felt that if Mr. Meg had not been held back by cooking, he might have become a better business genius than Hill Buffett. As the fashion designer, Mr. Meg definitely played a big part in Suede's rapid growth to become the #1 women's clothing brand in Chaos City. But he did not expect Mr. Meg to enter the textile industry so quickly. Furthermore, the new factory had only been operating for a short while, and it had already reached the production capacity of all the textile factories in family Moreton. Yes. Mr. Meg will sell the high-quality cloth to us at a price lower than the market price, and then we will sell it to all parts of the world through our channels. Gloria nodded. What's the approximate price? Mars asked. He was a little worried that Gloria, who had just taken over the textile industry, would step into a trap. It's 30% lower than the cost price of our own factories in the Roth Empire. 30%. Mars raised his voice immediately. He stopped in his tracks and stared at Gloria in disbelief. You mean 30% lower than the cost price, and not the selling price? Yes, 30% lower than the cost price. Mr. Meg also said that if we can provide them with high-quality cotton at a low price, the price will be reduced by another 10%. Gloria nodded with a smile. So you kept all the cotton farms, and gave them money to buy land. You also asked them to plant the best cotton. Mars came to a sudden realization, and he turned to Gloria with an astonished expression as he said, I didn't think that young Mistress Mag would have already reached such an important agreement with you. If we can obtain high-quality cloth and cotton yarn at such a low price, then we'll be able to gain a massive competitive advantage in the global market. Gloria nodded and said, Mr. Meg gave us such preferential treatment, but he also made a request. I will invest in a textile brand with him, and share the brand and profits. That's not too much to ask. Mars nodded. With such a low price, it wouldn't be difficult for Meg to expand the market himself. It would just take some time. He chose to cooperate with Gloria, and showed such sincerity. They would set up a brand together, and they would share the capital, so their cooperation would become closer. After all the stores under our brands are closed, we can start to distribute the goods for the new brand. We won't be opening thousands of stores this time. Instead, we will open large stores and sell the goods at a low price. Not only will we reduce labor costs, but we will also increase sales. Gloria smiled and said, Mr. Meg said that as long as our sales can keep up, he can double the production at any time. Mr. Meg is really a god. Mars was more than amazed. Family Moreton couldn't reduce the production costs and increase the production after decades of research, but to Meg, it was as simple as playing house. Mr. Meg and I agreed that the first delivery time will be at the beginning of next month. Before that, we need to gather a sum of money and make sure that our sales team is ready for the new brand. Gloria looked at Mars and said, whether we can turn the textile industry's losses into profits in 3 months depends on this. Mr. Meg, I beg you, please save me. Meg opened the door and saw Cyril bowing and begging with a face full of flattery. He was a little confused. That's not right. This second young master of the Moreton family always had his nose in the air and didn't look anyone in the eye. He even insulted me several times during the Chamber of Commerce's annual meeting. What's wrong with him today? Did I get the wrong person? Meg tried to ask. No, I'm Cyril, the Cyril you know. Cyril quickly shook his head and looked at Meg with a sad face, and said, Mr. Meg, I'm here today to ask for your help. Do you think I can help you? Meg rolled his eyes and asked. Cyril, who had been brewing his emotions for a long time, suddenly choked. He stared at Meg. This guy didn't play by the rules. How could he speak like this? How could he not let him speak? Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1660. Meg looked at Cyril calmly. He had already guessed the purpose of his visit. However, he wasn't a fool. How could he intercede for him? It was normal for him to add fuel to the fire. Meg had no feelings for family Moreton. He was a little unhappy with the rigid president. He didn't care about Cyril showing off his intelligence. However, if he had the chance, he wouldn't mind lifting his foot and stomping a disgusting cockroach to death. Of course, the most important thing was that if Cyril fell, Gloria would be able to take over. He quite liked this clever girl and had decided to build a deeper friendship with her. Of course, it was in the business aspect. Although she couldn't compare with the Hill in many aspects, Meg was more willing to communicate with the fledgling Gloria than the overly shrewd and business-minded Buffett Hill. Men, no matter what, like to be brought up by themselves. Cyril looked at Meg with hatred. This guy's disgusting methods were even worse than Gloria's. However, he couldn't get angry. He didn't even dare to provoke him at this time. Otherwise, if he said a few more bad things about him in front of Master Rome, he probably wouldn't be able to get through tonight. Mr. Meg, it's my fault. I've made you angry time and time again. I sincerely apologize to you. I hope that you won't hold a grudge against me and put in a good word for me to Master Rome. Cyril begged with a sad face. He rolled his eyes and said, I also hope that you can help me for Gloria's sake. I know that you have a good relationship with her. I'm her uncle. I heard that you haven't married yet. I can help you in this matter. Ha! Meg looked at Cyril with some surprise. What was going on? He couldn't ask for help, so he sold his niece. Wait, who said I haven't married? My daughter is already 4 years old. Did I give birth to her myself? Meg pursed his lips as he looked at Cyril with a mocking smile, and said, also, young Mistress Gloria and I are purely business partners. Our relationship is indeed quite good, so if I were to help you, wouldn't that ruin our relationship? This matter concerns the safety of family Moreton. Gloria is also on my side, Cyril quickly said. Are you stupid, or do you think I'm stupid? Meg slammed the door, too lazy to argue with him. He had personally witnessed the influence of Master Rome. When he was in Isen Castle, there was always a line of experts waiting outside the door to request to forge weapons. He was also known as the dwarf that should not be provoked in Isen Castle, because there was always a group of crazy bodyguards looking for a chance to curry favor with him. Cyril, on the other hand, jumped out and became a monster for others to gain favor with. He did not think that Cyril would really be hacked to death. The Castellan's castle would not let such a thing happen for family Moreton's sake. However, this matter would not be resolved so easily. If Cyril did not die, he would at least lose a layer of skin. As for whether Geoffrey would continue to let him be a candidate for family Moreton's successor, it would depend on whether he was determined to let Gloria become the successor. Interesting. Meg sat back in his seat with a slight smile. The teapot on the small stove was still steaming. He picked up the book on the table, Lord of the Mysteries, which he had read halfway through, and continued reading. Compared to the somewhat obscure Cthulhu mythos books abroad, the reading experience of this book was very good. Damn it! Cyril punched the tree beside the restaurant. His face was ashen, and the veins on his forehead were bulging. After being thwarted by Gloria and Meg, Cyril began to feel anxious as the sun was setting and there were already people waiting outside the restaurant. It was obviously too late to find someone to pull strings now. Cyril clenched his fists as he looked at all of the customers chatting merrily with one another. It looks like I'll have to apologize to that old man in person. There's only one chance, so I have to get his forgiveness in person. Master Rome, the location of the forging workshop has been confirmed. A construction team will build the new forging workshop according to your request in the next 2 days. If you need anything, you can send someone to find me at any time. The Castellan's residence will do its best to help. Dicus looked at Rome, and said with a smile, the Castellan will be hosting a banquet tonight. Do you think, thank you for your help, but the banquet won't take up the Castellan's time. I'll just go to Mamie's for a simple meal. Thank you for your kindness. Before Dicus could finish, Rome had already declined with a smile. The Castellan knows that you don't like the banquets at the Castellan's residence, so he's hosting a banquet at Mamie's tonight to entertain you. It's a private banquet tonight, so he'll only bring his family to the banquet, Dicus said with a smile. Rome nodded with a smile, and said, if that's the case, I naturally can't decline. I'd also like to thank Castellan Michael personally for his help with the matter of the forging workshop. Father, is the person we're going to meet today really the Master Rome who forged the Tiandu sword? Vivian asked excitedly as she looked at Michael. Yes. The location of Master Rome's new forging workshop has been confirmed. It's near the Aiden Square. Michael nodded with a smile. Then, can I ask him to forge a sword for me? Vivian asked expectantly. Haven't you stopped practicing swordsmanship for many years? But I've also wanted to roam the world with a sword. Vivian said meekly. Furthermore, wouldn't it be very cool to walk around with a sword of the same quality as the Tiandu sword? There are so many swordsmen and machete men in the world who can't even get a sword. Even the 10th tier powerhouses can't get one, and you're asking for one. You're really ignorant and fearless. Michael laughed helplessly. I see. I was just kidding. It's not convenient to go shopping with a sword, so don't take it seriously. Vivian stuck her tongue out when she heard that. Then, she perplexedly asked, but, if Master Rome is so impressive, why did he come to our Chaos City? Yes. You wrote to him back then, but weren't you rejected directly? The madam asked curiously as she sat opposite him. We have to give our Mr. Mac credit for being able to attract a legendary blacksmith like Master Rome to Chaos City, Michael said with a smile. Mr. Mac. Vivian exclaimed. What's wrong with him? According to Master Rome himself, he might have come to Chaos City so that he could eat Mr. Mac's steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers. Michael's smile was a little ridiculous. This reason is really very real. Vivian nodded understandingly. If I couldn't eat spicy grilled fish every day, I would also want to move to Chaos City no matter how far it was. This Mr. Mac is really quite capable. The city lord's wife covered her mouth as she chuckled. Vivian's eyes suddenly lit up, and she smilingly said, Hey. Father, since Mr. Mac could even lure Master Rome to Chaos City, why don't we let him try to lure other talents to Chaos City too? For example, that master tactician from the demons who's good at calculation, that master of combat from the orcs. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1661. You're such a clever little girl. Michael couldn't help but smile. However, after some serious consideration, he said, I'm very confident in Mr. Mac's cooking, but the prerequisite is for those people to taste Mr. Mac's dishes first. That's not an easy thing to do. That's simple. Father, you can hold a skills competition in Chaos City, and ask the Aiden Chamber of Commerce for a generous sponsorship as a reward. Then, you can attract the top talents from all walks of life to Chaos City to participate in the competition, and send the best of them to Mamie's for dinner. Most of them will definitely be reluctant to leave, Vivian suggested. That's a good idea. A skills competition on the entire continent has never been held before. If we hold one, we can invite the top talents from all walks of life to compete. Michael's eyes lit up with interest. Yes. We can also hold a God of Cookery competition and invite all the famous chefs from all over the Norland continent to compete for the title of the God of Cookery. Then, many people will definitely be attracted. Not only will it increase Chaos City's influence, but if some people choose to stay, it will also increase the floating population of Chaos City and strengthen Chaos City, Vivian chimed in. Say, didn't the two of you say that we're not going to talk about work when we're out for dinner as a family? The madam looked at the father and daughter who were getting more and more excited as they talked. Then, she rolled her eyes at Michael and said, you can talk about work with Vivian even without your subordinates. Michael smiled and said, I didn't expect Vivian's ideas to be so unique. She gave me a lot of inspiration. You don't say. I even want her to work in the City Lord's Castle Secretariat. The injection of young blood might be able to give those old fellows some new ideas. That won't do. I've already prepared for the Chaos School's teacher recruitment exam. I'm going to fight for education with Luna for the rest of my life. I'm not going to get involved in the politics of you adults. Vivian immediately shook her head with a tragic expression. Don't be so smug. Chaos School won't let you go to Chaos City just because you're the young mistress of the City Lord's castle. You've only been preparing for a short while, and you're already so confident. The madam poured a bucket of cold water on Vivian. Mother. Vivian pouted, feeling a little wronged. How can that be? Our Vivian is very outstanding. Although she is a little eccentric, she has read more books than most of the teachers in Chaos School. She is very knowledgeable and has the heart to educate others. I believe she will have no problem passing the teacher recruitment test, Michael said to Vivian with a doting smile. Father knows me best. A smug smile immediately appeared on Vivian's face as she winked at her mother. You just spoil her. Madam smiled grumpily. I only have one daughter. If I don't spoil her, who will? Michael said matter-of-factly. It didn't take long for the carriage to stop, and the coachman's voice came from outside. My lord, Mamie's here. Let's get out of the car, madam. I'll take you to try Mr. Mac's cooking today. Michael smiled and got out of the car. Mother, the spicy grilled fish really is super delicious. You'll see if I was just bragging today, Vivian said in a boastful manner. All right, let's get out of the car. The madam held on to Vivian's hand with a smile, and said, let's not talk about whether it's delicious or not, but I still have to thank Mr. Mag in person for curing your illness for so many years. He's your savior, so we can't forget his kindness. The horse-drawn carriage from the City Lord's castle stopped here, and there were many people watching from the back of the long line. Master Rome, I know I was wrong. I was blind and short-sighted. Please forgive me for offending you this afternoon. Cyril stood beside Master Rome with his head almost touching the ground. His voice was trembling, and his face was flushed. All of the customers in the line looked over, and some passers-by also stopped to watch. Many of the customers recognized Cyril as the arrogant Cyril who wanted to recruit Master Rome this afternoon. Who would have thought that he would be begging for Master Rome's forgiveness now? Cyril wanted nothing more than to find a hole to hide in. He was quite famous in the business world of Chaos City, and was once regarded as the successor of family Moritan, as well as the next leader of the family. Now, he was apologizing to a dwarf and begging for his forgiveness. "Are we not going to talk about the deal?" Master Rome looked at Cyril with a smile. "I wouldn't dare. I have eyes but I can't see. Please forgive me this time, Grandmaster." Cyril's face was burning as he stole a glance at Master Rome. If he couldn't get Master Rome's forgiveness today, it would be a sleepless night for him. "Forgive?" Rome looked at Cyril. He actually didn't take his actions in the afternoon to heart. It was a novel experience. After all, he hadn't met such a person in Isen Castle. However, he could roughly guess the reason why Cyril came back and apologized to him. Although it wasn't his intention, those customers who couldn't get a weapon would always try to please him. As a result, no one dared to pass by his forge in Isen Castle for a long time. They were afraid that they would be accused of being disrespectful to a master and thrown in front of Master Rome. He wasn't sure how many customers had followed him to Chaos City, but he was sure that this tradition would continue. Rome didn't want to cause trouble for the City Lord's castle when he first came to Chaos City. He was prepared to accept Cyril's apology and let this matter go. "Hey, aren't you the grandpa who sells cleavers in Isen Castle? Why did you come to Chaos City?" Right at this moment, a soft and cute voice sounded from the side. Rome turned around when he heard that, and his gaze landed on the little girl who came through the crowd. She was wearing a white fluffy down jacket, and her two ponytails were swaying up and down as she jumped. Her exquisite and cute face was filled with surprise and joy. It was Meg's adorable daughter. SSSS, everyone gasped when they heard that. Little Boss actually called Master Rome a grandpa who sells cleavers. This was a huge offense. Master Rome was known as the #1 blacksmith on the Norland continent. Calling him a cleaver was an insult. "Great. You're giving me a way out. Meg, I think it's your turn to cry now." Cyril's eyes lit up when he heard that. He looked at Amy, who was bouncing over, and stood up immediately. He said in a deep voice, "How dare you? Little girl." "Oh, it's little Amy. You've grown taller again." Before Cyril could say anything, Rome was already looking at Amy with a doting smile, and said, "Cleavers aren't easy to sell, so I came to Chaos City to sell them." "It's all right. I'll get father to buy a few more," Amy consoled Rome as she looked at him. "There might not be steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers, but there will be bread." This. Everyone stared at this scene with their eyes wide open. Why isn't he following the rules? Cyril also looked at the smiling Master Rome in disbelief as he felt a lump in his throat. Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1662. So Little Boss and Master Rome know each other. The onlookers looked at this scene and suddenly realized something. Then, they looked at Cyril with pity. Everyone had a different fate. Master Rome dotes on Little Boss so much. That's right. A legendary blacksmith who claims to sell kitchen knives. Only the Little Boss can do that. Cuteness is justice. People whispered among themselves as they looked at Amy with smiles in their eyes. Cyril stood aside awkwardly. He even forgot to close his mouth. He was so flustered that he didn't even know where to put his hands. He thought that this little brat would offend Master Rome and give him a chance to show off. But he didn't expect that this little brat and Master Rome knew each other. After greeting Rome, Amy turned to look at Cyril and frowned. "Isn't this that annoying uncle? Little Amy, you know him." Rome, who was ready to forgive Cyril, asked with a smile. "Yes, this uncle is really annoying. He made things difficult for the kind teacher Luna and the beautiful Gloria. Anyway, he's a habitual bad guy." Amy nodded and looked at him with disdain. Cyril stared at Amy. He didn't expect to be kicked out at the last minute, and in such a critical way. Master Rome, please listen to me. It's not like what she said. I'm actually a good person. Cyril hurriedly explained. TSK, he's not a good person. He's a good-for-nothing old man. He's so annoying. Vivian, who had already moved to the periphery, curled her lips and said with disdain. It seems that Jeffrey will have a headache this time. Michael smiled. Rome looked at Cyril and frowned. It seemed that this guy was worse than he thought. It wasn't a coincidence that he was showing off in front of him. If he wasn't afraid of being beaten to death by his followers, he wouldn't have appeared here and apologized so sincerely. Cyril's heart was beating wildly. His legs began to tremble, and he almost couldn't resist the urge to kneel down. Although I don't know you, it seems that you didn't do it on the spur of the moment. As an adult man, you should be responsible for your actions. Rome looked calmly at Cyril, who was about to kneel down. Also, I hate it when people pester me, especially men. You can either walk away quickly, or wait to be kicked out. Cyril's half-bent legs suddenly straightened. His heart sank. He glanced at Joey and Joss, who were about to step forward, and knew that he was done for today. He bowed to Rome with red eyes, turned around, and walked quickly towards the carriage. He had to go home immediately. Home was the only safe place. Everyone looked at Cyril's back view with pity. He was finished now. Master Rom's words were equivalent to closing the coffin for him and hammering a few iron nails into it. Master Rome, long time no see. Michael came forward with Vivian and his wife. My lord. Everyone finally noticed the city lord's family, and bowed to greet them. Rome also nodded to Michael with a smile. My lord, long time no see. There's no need to be so polite. I'm also here for dinner today. Like everyone else, I'm also a customer of Mamie's. Michael waved his hand with a smile. He looked at Rome and said, let's line up at the back for now. We'll talk later at the table. My lord, please go ahead. We'll stand at the back. The customers standing behind Rome all stepped back. You don't have to give way to me. We'll line up according to the rules. Michael waved his hand with a smile. Chaos City is a city with rules, and Mamie's is also a restaurant with rules. We have to follow the rules. Everyone smiled when they heard that. Everyone was willing to follow Mamie's rules because of the delicious food and the special atmosphere they created together. In this place, the barriers between races and the differences in status seemed to be negligible. It was because of those strict rules that were not difficult to accept, and also because of those delicacies that made people feel blissful. Hello, Big Sister Vivian, Uncle City Lord, and Pretty Auntie. Amy greeted everyone, and then bade farewell to Rome before skipping towards the restaurant's entrance. What a cute little girl. The city lord's wife, Monica, looked at Amy skipping away with glowing eyes. She's Mr. Mac's daughter, Amy. She's also the little boss of Mamie's. She's also Luna's student. She's the real treasure of Mamie's, Vivian introduced. She's so cute. She's much cuter than you were when you were young, Monica said enviously. Her mother must be so happy to have such a cute little girl. Mother, I'm still a baby. Vivian said with a complex expression. Michael tilted his head and said, who said that? I just think our Vivian was very cute when she was young. Those big eyes, that big nose, those big ears, all right, father, you can shut up too. Vivian rolled her eyes. Am I a pig? Exactly. Didn't you always call yourself a piggy girl when you were young? Monica covered her mouth and chuckled as if she had recalled something funny. I can testify to that. Your mother isn't lying, Michael agreed. All right, I know. Luckily, I wasn't born in winter. Otherwise, I would have suspected that I was picked up from the snow, Vivian said with a resigned expression. Even if you weren't picked up from the snow, you could have been picked up from the garbage, Monica reminded with a smile. Vivian stopped in her tracks and looked at Monica with a serious expression. Mother, I won't bring you here next time. Then I'll have to come with my husband. Monica hooked her arm around Michael's with a smile. Michael shrugged, indicating that there was nothing he could do about it. All right, in that case, I'll force myself to come with you. Vivian looked at the two of them in silence for a while before a smile appeared on her face again. She hooked her arm around Monica's. It's fate. In the restaurant, Meg looked on as Cyril got onto the horse-drawn carriage and left in a disheveled state. He shook his head with a smile. Amy's coincidental intervention had wiped out Cyril's last hope of resolving the problem by himself. He could only go back and face Jeffrey's wrath. Amy entered the restaurant and hung her little bag on Ugly Duckling. She looked up at Meg and said, Father, I just bumped into that grandpa who sells cleavers outside. He's so pitiful. He came so far to sell cleavers. Why don't we buy a few more cleavers from him? Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1663. If he's willing, I don't mind buying a few more cleavers, Meg said with a smile. Even if it was just a cleaver made by a master roam, it could be sold for a sky-high price. For example, the fat-head fish in his hand could be used to fight a 10th tier knight with ease. However, he didn't expect that in Amy's mind, a master roam was just an old man who sold cleavers. It seemed like he had to introduce her to the people around her in the future. Otherwise, she would probably think that her master was just an old man who sold magic potions and had nothing to do. I see. Amy tilted her head thoughtfully and said, Then I'll persuade him to sell a few more cleavers to us. Sure, as long as you can persuade him. It would be even better if he could forge a weapon for you, Meg said with a chuckle. Weapon? I think the wand that my master gave me is pretty good. Amy looked at Meg with a perplexed expression. That's just a basic piece of equipment. You can use it before you become a great magic caster, but when you become more powerful, it won't be enough to support your power. Meg smiled and said, Although that was a custom-made weapon for you by your master, they're not real blacksmiths, after all. If you can get a master roam to forge a weapon for you, it'll be a weapon that you can use for the rest of your life. Amy thought seriously for a while before asking, So, I'll have to use a cleaver when I grow up. Ahem. Meg coughed dryly, and patted Amy's head with a smile as he said, All right, it's still too early to think about that. Go play with Ugly Duckling. Meow, meow, Ugly Duckling wagged its tail with a puzzled expression, and rubbed its head against Amy's calf in a fawning manner. It then lay down on the instep of her foot, and rolled around on the spot to act cute. Amy kicked Ugly Duckling away, picked up the bag, and patted it with disdain as she said, Stupid Ugly Duckling, you dropped my bag on the ground. Meow. Ugly Duckling lay on the ground with an innocent expression. Am I not as cute as a schoolbag? No, thank you. Amy rolled her eyes at it. Meow. Ugly Duckling covered its eyes in despair. Although it seems strange to use a kitchen knife, since Father said that I should use the weapon made by Grandpa kitchen knife when I grow up, then I'll ask him to make one for me. I just don't know if the two masters will be angry. Amy put her bag on the counter and pondered seriously with her chin in her hand. Mia and Barbara had already arrived at the restaurant. They had nothing to do and were chatting while waiting for dinner. What do young ladies talk about these days? Barbara asked curiously. Everyone looked at each other and fell silent for a moment. Speaking of which, they were all young ladies, but none of them could be considered normal. Yabamiya had been exploited in the kitchen for many years. Barbara lived like a princess in the Moon Nation's palace. Elizabeth had to bear many responsibilities and hatred since she was young. Gina only knew how to learn magic since she was young. Jane worked hard to survive on Carapace Island every day. Angela couldn't be considered a qualified succubus. As for Camilla, she couldn't be considered a young lady anymore. If they were to be serious, the only one who could be considered a normal young lady was Raina. However, she was busy preparing the hot pot base in the kitchen, and had no time to join their conversation. When I was leaving school just now, I heard the ladies on the street talking about their figures. Amy looked at everyone with a smile, and said, "So, the young ladies should all be talking about their figures, right?" Figures. Upon hearing that, everyone started to size up the people around them. Their eyes secretly lingered on certain body parts for a while before they moved on to the next person without leaving any trace. Barbara shrank back a little. She suddenly regretted asking that question. Big sister Mia has such a good figure. Although she looks skinny, her lines are very perfect. Most importantly, she even has breasts. Phyllis stuck her head out and looked at Mia enviously. "I have one too." Gina sat up straight and tightened her voluptuous curves. "Me too." Angela stood up confidently. Elizabeth crossed her arms and didn't say anything. However, her actions spoke louder than words. Jane stared at everyone with her eyes wide open. She only realized today that the ladies all had good figures. Barbara looked at everyone and was instantly discouraged. She muttered softly, "I'm still growing." Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere became cheerful and relaxed. Barbara bit her lips. She didn't feel like she was being mocked, but she was a little confused. If Mia and the rest were ladies with good figures, then what was her figure? It's okay. Barbara is still a little girl. You'll grow faster if you eat more tofu pudding every day. Mia smiled and hugged Barbara's shoulder as she encouraged her. Our school's vice dean is 68 years old this year. Her figure is about the same as big sister Barbara's, Amy reminded them. Everyone was stunned for a moment before they burst into even louder laughter. Barbara raised her eyebrows. She suddenly felt a sense of danger. If it had nothing to do with age, then she wouldn't grow up. Meg couldn't help but smile as he listened to the ladies' joyful conversation in the kitchen. However, it wasn't suitable for him to participate in such topics, so he continued to grind tofu quietly. Naturally, the young ladies' topics weren't just about figures. They also talked about clothes, relationships between men and women, interesting childhood stories, their future ideal type, whether to have children. They talked about life and dreams. There were so many topics that they could talk about the whole day. However, the lives of the ladies in the restaurant were a little too monotonous. Of course, more importantly, they weren't good at stirring up interesting topics. As a result, they could only talk about low-level topics such as whose figure was better. Otherwise, they could sit here and talk about the interesting and secret stories of their respective races. For example, the history of the Frost Dragon tribe's former chief's valiant rise to power, or the history of the vampire tribe's new chief eating grass, or the unspeakable history of the succubi. These were all topics that could be casually talked about for 3 days and 3 nights, and there was no need to worry about the level of excitement. Looks like it's very necessary to find time to do a team building in the restaurant and teach these ladies, who aren't good at making friends, how to chat. Meg calculated in his heart. Tomorrow was a holiday, but Raina's Mana Hot Pot restaurant was opening for business, so the team building plan had to be pushed back a little. The dishes are ready. Everyone, get ready to eat. Meg walked out of the kitchen with a tray in his hand. Everyone consciously went to get the dishes themselves. Boss, what's my figure? Barbara looked at Meg and asked the question that had been bothering her for a long time. Meg glanced at Irina, then looked at Barbara and thought seriously for a while. He said, "It's probably Little Red Riding Hood." Little Red Riding Hood. Barbara was puzzled. The others also looked at Meg in confusion. What did that mean? Little Red Riding Hood is so pitiful. Her grandmother was eaten by a wolf, Amy mumbled as she chewed on a drumstick. No pop-up window. Chapter 1664. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Barbara thought about Amy and Meg's words seriously and shook her head in confusion. But I don't have a grandmother. Barbara thought about Amy and Meg's words seriously and shook her head in confusion. But I don't have a grandmother. Elizabeth's mouth twitched. She lowered her head and ate a mouthful of Yangzhou fried rice to stop herself from laughing. This guy is really indecent, Camilla thought to herself as she glanced at Meg. Irina smiled meaningfully. She didn't expect him to have learned to speak to this extent. That's right. Let's eat. Meg nodded while holding back his laughter. He picked up his chopsticks and started eating. That's ridiculous. Barbara frowned. She still didn't understand what was going on. She could only pick up her chopsticks and start eating. Father, I know I was wrong. Please save me. Please save me. Cyril returned to the Moreton Manor and crawled into the study. He knelt on the ground and cried while hugging Geoffrey's leg. Geoffrey looked at him coldly and didn't say a word. Gloria didn't want to help me. She could have put in a good word for me, but she didn't because of her own selfish reasons. Shut up. You can be a human. Geoffrey raised his leg and kicked Cyril to the ground. He looked at him coldly and said, "You brought this trouble upon yourself. What right do you have to ask Gloria to speak up for you and settle it for you? Is it because you, as her uncle, take good care of her family? Or do you think you're so shameless that everyone has to take care of you?" Cyril was a little stunned by the kick. It took him a while to come back to his senses. He quickly shook his head and said, "No, Father, let me explain, shut up. Since Master Rome didn't accept your apology, it means you have to bear the consequences of this matter. No matter how you try to shirk the responsibility, this is something that can't be changed." Geoffrey interrupted Cyril. "Save me, Father. I really know my mistake. Please plead for me. Our family Moreton is one of the 4 major families in Chaos City, and you are the president of the Aiden Chamber of Commerce. As long as you plead with the city lord, he will definitely help." Cyril was so anxious that tears began to fall. "From today onwards, I will remove all your positions in the family and take back all the properties under your name. You will be grounded at home for half a year and your family's expenses will be changed to 5,000 copper coins, Geoffrey said coldly. Cyril was stunned and said in shock, "Father, you're so ruthless. If it weren't for the fact that we were father and son, I would have thrown you out right now," Geoffrey said coldly. Cyril looked at Geoffrey's cold expression and his heart sank. He swallowed the words that he was about to say. He had no doubt that Geoffrey would do such a thing. If he were to be chased out of the family now, his next step would be to die on the streets. Yes. Cyril got up from the ground and left the study in a daze. Removing all his positions, taking back all the properties under his name, and being grounded at home for half a year basically meant that he had been removed from the list of successors. He couldn't understand how he had been kicked out of the game for no reason when his battle with Gloria had just begun. "Menard, make a trip to the city lord's castle for me," Geoffrey said calmly as he looked at the secretary-general who came in. Dacus came to Michael and softly said, "My lord, about Cyril, wait." Michael shook his head slightly. Dacus understood what he meant, and greeted Monica and Vivian before returning to the group without saying another word. The door of the restaurant slowly opened, and Meg walked out with a smile to welcome the guests. My lord, my lady. Meg greeted Michael and his family with a smile. Are you just going to ignore me? I'm Luna's best friend, Vivian said with a displeased expression. This blockhead really doesn't understand at all. If you want to get a girl, you have to get her best friend first. Are you here for grilled fish again, Miss Vivian? Meg asked with a smile. Of course, I'm not wrong at all. Vivian nodded as a matter of fact. Mr. Meg, I haven't had the chance to thank you in person for curing Vivian's body. I'm here to thank you today. Monica bowed slightly at the thought of Meg. All of the guests were surprised to see this. Judging from the words of the city lord's wife, Mr. Meg was Miss Vivian's benefactor. If that was the case, then wouldn't Mamies have another city lord backing her? You're too kind, my lady. Meg hurriedly waved his hands. He knew that Vivian didn't come here to eat the spicy grilled fish just because it was delicious, but he didn't think that he would receive any special thanks from her. However, the statement made by the city lord's wife at the entrance of the restaurant today was equivalent to telling the entire world that Mamies was under the protection of the city lord's castle, so she could avoid some trouble in the future. Michael and his family entered the restaurant, and made their way directly to the table where Master Rome was seated. Michael sat down beside Rome with a smile, and introduced, Master Rome, this is my wife, Monica, and this is my daughter, Vivian. Hello, Master Rome, it's an honor to meet you, Monica said with a gentle smile. Master, I'm your loyal fan, and I admire you very much. Vivian was looking at Rome with glowing eyes, and she was wondering if she should ask him to forge a sword for her. Hello, madam. Michael also nodded at Monica with a smile. He then looked at Vivian and said, You're very beautiful, just like your mother. That's good, Michael said with a smile. That's what I thought too. Vivian nodded in agreement. She then flipped open the menu and said, Let's order first. I can't wait to eat the spicy grilled fish. I agree. I can't wait to eat the steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers either. Rome nodded and added, one for each. All right, I'll order an extra steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers for you. After that, we'll have a large, medium spicy grilled fish. As for the rest. Vivian turned the menu around and moved it in front of Monica. Mother, it's your first time here, so you choose. What a special menu. Are the images on the menu what the actual dishes look like? They all look very enticing. Monica's eyes lit up as she looked at the images on the menu. That's not enough to fully showcase their beauty. Mr. Mac's dishes are all perfect in terms of color, aroma, and taste. He's like an exquisite artist. It's perfect. Vivian pointed at the tofu pudding and suggested, you can try the tofu pudding. It's super good. Not only can it whiten your skin, but it can also remove scars and scars. Chapter 1665. Master Rome chatted merrily with Michael's family, and the dishes were soon served. Everyone chatted as they ate, and the atmosphere gradually became more relaxed. Just as Michael had said, it was just a family dinner, and they only talked about some interesting things. They didn't mention anything about recruitment. Meanwhile, Dicus and Rome's two disciples sat at the table next to them and ate quietly. Joss and Joey weren't surprised that their master could chat so casually with the city lord of Chaos City. After all, the people lining up outside the forging workshop in the past were all powerful powerhouses from various races. Mr. Mac is indeed the #1 chef in Chaos City. Regardless of whether it's the tofu pudding or the grilled fish, the taste is amazing and mesmerizing, Monica exclaimed. This was her first time eating at Mamie's, and she had only heard Vivian's praises in the past. Today, she realized that there was no falsehood in her words. Hee hee, I didn't lie to you, right? I'll bring you along next time, Vivian said smugly as if she had just shown off something amazing. You're trying to trick me into paying for you again, aren't you? Monica chuckled. Of course not. Vivian put a piece of grilled fish into her mouth, and pretended not to know anything. Speaking of which, the weapon rankings haven't changed for many years. I wonder when Master Rome is going to update it. Michael looked at Rome with a smile. The Norland Continent weapon rankings have been around for 100 years, and recorded the top weapons on the Norland Continent. It had always been determined by the Blacksmiths Association, and was originally a very stable ranking. After all, legendary weapons weren't that easy to forge. However, Master Rome was the biggest variable on this ranking. Every time he forged a new weapon, the ranking would change, and even shake the positions of the top 10 weapons. However, it had been 5 or 6 years since Master Rome last forged a new weapon, and there were still many people lining up outside the forging workshop. However, no one had heard of him promising to forge a weapon for anyone, so there were some rumors. Some people said that Master Rome had run out of ideas, and couldn't forge a better weapon anymore. Some people said that Master Rome was too old to swing a hammer. Some people even said that Master Rome had a bad memory and would not forge new weapons. There were many rumors, but none of them had been confirmed, which made people curious. Michael had met Master Rome more than 20 years ago. When he saw him again today, Master Rome seemed to be older, but he seemed to be in good spirits. His hands and feet were nimble, and he did not seem to be unable to wield the hammer, nor did he seem to have a bad memory. As for talent, if a Rome master was not talented, then there would be no talented blacksmiths in the world. Therefore, Michael was only curious about when Master Rome was going to create his next weapon. He had no doubt that Master Rome's next weapon would be able to enter the weapons ranking list. I haven't thought about it yet. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. It depends on fate. A good weapon has to meet the right person. Rome shook his head with a smile. Fate is wonderful. Michael also smiled. He did not think that Rome was pretentious. The Tian-Du sword was not made by Master Rome for Meg Alex. This sword had been passed down in the Alex family for more than 200 years. However, Meg Alex had defeated countless strong enemies with this sword. He had slain dragons in the sky and killed demons in the sea. This sword had risen from the top 100 to the 3rd place on the weapons ranking list. No matter how good a weapon was, if it was not worthy of its owner, it would only become a piece of art. Master, do I look like the fated person? Vivian put down her chopsticks and looked at Rome expectantly. Miss Vivian, you don't even need to use a kitchen knife. Even if you are fated, you won't be able to use it. Rome smiled. Well, it seems that I'm not fated enough. Vivian shrugged. She was not disappointed. After all, she could not wield a sword or a kitchen knife. Dicus went out for a while, and soon returned. He whispered something into Michael's ear. Michael nodded slightly. He looked at Rome with a smile, and said, Master Rome, I invited you to a family banquet today, but I have to trouble you with something. Please go ahead, Lord. Rome nodded slightly. The person who offended you today is Geoffrey Moreton's second son. The Moreton family is one of the 4 major families in Chaos City. As the president of the Aden Chamber of Commerce, Geoffrey has contributed a lot to the development of Chaos City. I know that his son likes to stir up trouble, and he should be taught a lesson for offending you. However, you also know that those fans will do anything to please you. Hence, I hope you can forgive him here. As for teaching him a lesson, I'll leave it to his father. Is that okay? Michael asked with a smile. Oh, I see. Since you believe that his father can teach him a lesson, I won't fight to teach his son a lesson for someone else. Rome nodded. He turned to Joss, who was sitting at the side, and said, Go to the new workshop and tell them what I said. Then, this matter will be settled. Yes. Joss took a Ruggiemo, and quickly walked out of the door. Thank you. Michael cupped his hands. It's nothing. Rome shook his head with a smile. He picked up a piece of steamed fish head with diced hot red peppers, and put it in his bowl. Miss, the news just came from the manor. Cyril has been removed from all his positions, and all his properties have been taken back. Mars walked quickly into the office, and said to Gloria, who was reading the account book seriously. Gloria's eyes lit up. She put down the account book in her hand, and looked at Mars. Is he still qualified as the successor? He didn't mention it. Mars shook his head. However, since Master has dealt with it this way, it seems that he can no longer tolerate Cyril's behavior. It's a good thing for you. Cyril brought this upon himself. We just need to do our own things. Everything else will be decided by Grandpa. Gloria picked up the account book again and continued reading. Mars looked at Gloria with admiration and quietly left the room. What are you looking at? Camilla leaned against the wall and looked at Angela, who was peeking out a little wretchedly. There was a bit of examination and probing in her eyes. Nothing, I'm just casually looking at this busy restaurant. The work seems to be busier than I thought. Angela looked away from Irina without leaving a trace, and said calmly. Is that so? Angela looked at her with a faint smile. Then what are you looking at, Sister Camilla? Angela leaned forward slightly and looked at Camilla with a smile. Her slender phoenix eyes were already slightly narrowed. I'm not a woman you can seduce. You don't have to try this on me. Camilla curled her lips and said with a bit of contempt. Sorry, it's an occupational disease. Angela looked away and shrugged apologetically. She was a little puzzled. However, with Countess Bartoli's reputation and strength, why would she be a waitress in charge of cutting ingredients at Mamie's? Could it be that you've taken a fancy to the boss? I must be blind to have taken a fancy to him. Camilla rolled her eyes and looked at Angela. I don't understand. With your talent and strength, you should be able to become the heavenly maiden of the succubus clan. There should be a lot of things you have to do. Why would you come here to be a waitress? Could it be that you've taken a fancy to the boss? I must be blind to have taken a fancy to him. Angela also rolled her eyes. The two looked at each other and saw a trace of inexplicable light in each other's eyes. It was the same kind of aura. No pop-up window. Chapter 1666. Camilla sized Angela up. Her long and slender legs wrapped in white stockings were extremely attractive, and that cute pink tutu dress displayed her charm to the fullest. She crossed her arms in front of her chest, making her voluptuous breasts even more eye-catching. She was a woman who was both cute and seductive. No man would be able to reject her. Of course, it wasn't her favorite style. Miss Gloria was her true love. However, as a woman, she had to admit that Angela was the most beautiful succubus she had ever seen. As for being the most seductive, she was still far from it. She was far from being a succubus in a red light room in an alley on the Demon Islands. This kind of thing had to be experienced before one could understand. What she was curious about now was why Angela, a succubus with the strength of an 8th level, came to work as a waitress at Mamie's. The succubi had been having a hard time for hundreds of years. The succubi who had lost all their top powerhouses in the racial war seemed to bear some kind of curse at the same time. Very few succubi were able to advance to the 7th level, not to mention the top powerhouses of the 10th level. They only had beauty and charm, but they didn't have the strength to protect themselves. The succubi became the target of bullying by the other races. Their territory had long been invaded, and the succubi who wandered all over the place relied on selling their bodies to barely survive. They were no longer the coveted and revered succubi of the past. Angela was the most powerful succubus she had ever seen. She should be less than 20 years old, but she already had the strength of an 8th level. She had broken through the 7th level curse and displayed an extremely powerful talent for cultivation. There was a legend among the succubi. One day, the queen of the succubi would break the curse and lead the succubi to rebuild their home, to regain their former glory. However, in the past hundreds of years, several suspected queen of the succubi had appeared, but in the end, they were unable to lead the succubi to glory. This legend gradually became a joke among the other races. In the past, the vampire race and the succubi were quite close. Camilla knew that this wasn't the succubi's wishful thinking. The legend of the queen of the succubi didn't start when the succubi declined, but started in an even more ancient era. However, at that time, the succubus king's mission was to make the succubus race a peak race. After the succubus race was destroyed, the mission became to rebuild their homeland. Compared to the previous succubi who had spent hundreds of years to barely reach the 7th level, Angela had reached the 8th level at the age of 20. The talent she displayed made it easier for people to associate her with the legend of the succubi king. Why would such a young succubus who had been given the mission of the succubus clan willingly work as a waitress at Mamie's? Could it be that she also has an unspeakable photo stone in Meg's hands? Camilla's gaze was filled with realization and pity. Angela was also sizing up Camilla, who was wearing a long black dress. She was also puzzled as to why the princess of the vampires, Countess Bartoli, would hide in the kitchen of this small restaurant and willingly cut vegetables. One had to know that the vampires were one of the top 10 demon races, and Camilla's identity was extremely noble. Moreover, when she was wandering around the demon islands, she heard that Countess Bartoli was an extremely arrogant blood-sucking bitch. There were also rumors that she was a sadist. Count Bartoli's untimely death might have something to do with it. She still believed the first half of the sentence, but as for Count Bartoli dying because he couldn't stand the sadist, that was pure nonsense. After all, that short-lived Count Bartoli died suddenly on the eve of his wedding. Even if Camilla really had such a hobby, she didn't have the time to display it. With her identity, there was no such thing as not having enough money to eat. Even if she lived in Mamie's and ate 3 meals a day, it was just a small matter to her. There was no need for her to stay at Mamie's and work as a shameful vegetable cutter. It seems that she might have taken a fancy to the boss. If it's not the boss, then it's someone in the restaurant. Apart from the boss, the rest of the people in the restaurant are all women. So, she likes women. Angela's eyes lit up as she felt that she had found the key point. Cough, it seems that there are some similarities between us. Camilla coughed lightly and said. Since Meg had something on them, then they were friends. Maybe that's the case. Angela shrugged slightly. She was a little surprised that Camilla actually knew that she didn't like men, but she didn't expect her to be so frank. Since we have a common goal, why don't we form an alliance? Camilla took a step forward and lowered her voice. A common goal. Angela's eyes showed some vigilance. This word was very subtle. Could it be that she also took a fancy to her? I know your worries, but you have to know that you can't handle him alone. I can't either. Camilla looked into Angela's eyes and said with a sincere face, you should trust me here. Angela looked at Camilla and thought seriously for a while. As she said, she didn't have the confidence to win Irina's heart by herself. After all, she had the famous Alex by her side. He wasn't that easy to handle. I agree to this alliance. Angela nodded. She hesitated for a moment and said, but after this matter is done, how should we split it? Of course, this word might not be accurate. Split it. Camilla frowned. She only wanted to take back the photo stone and that unfair contract. She shook her head and said, I don't think we need to split it. If we don't split it. Angela glanced at Camilla and thought to herself, could it be that she wants the three of us to live a happy life together? That sounds not bad. Angela, please help to serve the food to the designated hot pot area. At this moment, Raina's voice sounded from the side. Okay. Angela agreed. Then she reached out her hand to Camilla and said softly, I believe we can succeed. I believe so too. Camilla shook Angela's hand and formed the alliance of the century. Amy hugged Ugly Duckling behind the counter and hesitated for a long time before she finally made up her mind. She placed Ugly Duckling on the counter, jumped down from the high stool, and skipped over to Rome's table. She looked at Rome with a serious expression and said, Grandpa, can you make me a cleaver? Cleaver. Rome looked at Amy with a smile, and asked, Little Amy, why do you want a cleaver? Michael and his family of 3 also looked at Amy curiously. The last person who asked Master Rome to forge a cleaver for her was Mr. Mac. They didn't expect Little Boss to come again. I asked Father to buy your cleaver. He said it would be great if you were willing to forge a weapon for me. But you only know how to forge cleavers, so I can only ask you to forge a cleaver for me. Amy tapped her index fingers in front of her, and worriedly said, I just don't know if Master will be angry if he finds out. After all, they don't look very mature. Chapter 1667. Everyone was surprised by Amy's words. They didn't expect Master Rome to only know how to forge kitchen knives. They were also amused by her worried expression. Her 2 masters were legendary magic casters, and she was calling them immature. Everyone took another look at the table by the window that was reserved for the 2 great magicians. Now, there was a new guest. It seemed that the little boss only said this after confirming that his master had left. Master Rome was also taken aback when he heard that. Then, he burst into laughter. Most people in this world respected him, feared him, or asked him for help. Very few people could treat him as an ordinary person. However, Amy only thought that he was a blacksmith who forged kitchen knives, and the kind that couldn't make a living. She clearly didn't like using kitchen knives, but she still wanted to buy one from him as a weapon. This childlike innocence and kindness made him feel warm and touched in this foreign land. Little Amy is the disciple of Crassus and Julian. She should be the first magic caster on the Norland continent to cultivate both melee and long-range magic at the same time, and ice and fire magic at the same time. Michael looked at Amy and joked, if she uses a kitchen knife as a weapon, her 2 masters will be furious. Everyone had kind smiles on their faces. It was obvious that Master Rome liked Amy very much, so he naturally didn't take her childish words to heart. Of course, no one took Amy's request seriously. Countless magic casters were queuing up to ask Master Rome to forge a wand for them, but they were all rejected. How could Master Rome agree to such a request? Meg also heard Amy's words from the kitchen. He rubbed his brows. He didn't expect this little girl to interpret his words like that. Why would a magic caster use a kitchen knife? Was she using a kitchen knife to chop electric wires and create sparks along the way? Master Rome's eyes lit up when he heard that. He looked at Amy with surprise. She's a master of both melee and long-range magic, and ice and fire magic at that. He only knew that this little girl should have learned some magic, but he didn't expect her to learn from Crassus and Julian at the same time. Actually, I also want to learn light magic and practice swordsmanship, Amy added. Isn't that enough? Everyone looked at Amy in surprise. She was only 4 years old, but she wanted to learn other magic and practice swordsmanship. Why? Luo Mu's gaze became more and more interested as he asked. I heard that the fireworks set off by fire and light magic are very beautiful. Amy's to see if it's true. Everyone fainted at the same time. They didn't think that it would be such a strange reason. That does sound pretty good. Rom thought seriously for a while and nodded. Right? I knew it, Amy said happily. What about swordsmanship? Aren't you a magician? Why are you practicing swordsmanship? Yes, yes. I want to be a knight, the kind that can fly into the sky with a sword and stab down evil dragons. Amy nodded. Her eyes were already sparkling. Then I'll set off beautiful fireworks to celebrate. So, you're learning magic just to set off beautiful fireworks? Rome said with a smile. Everyone looked at her. Nope. Magic can also fly. When I'm happy, I can set off fireworks. When I'm unhappy, I can set off hailstones. When I don't feel like fighting, I can set off little lotuses. It's very convenient. Amy shook her head. It's very invulnerable. Everyone blinked. It sounded like it was true, but it also didn't seem to be the case. Magic. Was it really just for convenience? Of course, not many people took Amy's words seriously. After all, it was already very difficult to become a great mage by specializing in one type of magic. Not to mention, Amy was already practicing both fire and ice magic, and was also practicing both close-range and long-range magic. Close-range magic, long-range magic, swordsman, ice, fire, and light magic. Master Rome thought seriously for a while, then looked at Amy and said, Little Amy, I'm not sure if I can make the weapon you want. When I have the inspiration, I'll tell you. Does this mean he's agreed? Master Rome is a man of his word. As long as he agrees to an order, he will never break it. This doesn't count as an agreement, right? Master Rome was just thinking about it. Who can withstand that? It has to be a magic wand and a close-range magic staff. Not only does it have to withstand the destruction of fire and ice magic, but it also has to be able to be used as a sword. It has to be able to kill dragons in the sky and cut vegetables in the kitchen as a kitchen knife. This request. Isn't it too much? People looked at Master Rome and Amy and whispered to each other. Perhaps they were witnessing the first moment of the birth of a great weapon. Of course, it could also be an unreasonable request from a cute little girl. Is it so difficult to make a kitchen knife nowadays? Amy frowned and looked at Master Rome. She thought for a while, then nodded and comforted him. It's okay. I'm not in a hurry. Take your time and think about it. Tell me when you've made up your mind. Okay. Master Rome nodded with a smile. He cleaned up the remaining half of the fish bone on the plate and got up to look at Michael. I have something to do today, so I have to go back early. Thank you for your hospitality. Okay. Take care, Master Rome. Michael also got up and said with a smile. Monica and Vivian got up to send him off. Goodbye, Grandpa. Amy also waved at Master Rome and reminded him, remember. Does that count as a promise? A magic wand that can be used as a sword. What an unreasonable request, Meg mumbled in his heart as he watched Master Rome leave in a hurry. However, Master Rome was probably the only blacksmith in this world who could satisfy Amy's unreasonable request. Unsurprisingly, whether Master Rome would forge an exclusive weapon for Little Boss became the hottest topic among the customers. Father, do you think little Amy is Master Rome's fated person? Vivian asked Michael. Maybe. From the moment he left Isen Castle and came to Chaos City, it's not impossible for him to do anything. Michael took a sip of wine with a smile and said, besides, I don't think you can find a weapon that's more unreasonable than this request. It might be an interesting challenge for him. I also want to see if such a weapon really exists, Vivian said with glowing eyes. Father, the old grandpa who bought the cleaver is so pitiful. He even needs inspiration to forge a cleaver. Amy walked to the kitchen door and looked at Meg sympathetically. It's all right. Let's just wait for his news. Maybe he can forge the weapon you want. Meg turned to look at Amy with a smile. Even if his cleaver is a little ugly, let's buy one. Amy nodded. Okay. Meg nodded with a smile. If you like Daddy's Restaurant in the Other World, please bookmark it. Daddy's Restaurant in the Other World is a hot bar with the fastest updates. Chapter 1668. Master, are you really going to forge a weapon for that little girl? Joey looked at Master Rome in the carriage and asked. Don't you think this is a very interesting challenge? Master Rome smiled expectantly. I've forged countless swords, magic wands, and magic staffs, but no one has ever made such a complicated and unbelievable request. But, she's only a 4-year-old girl. Joey looked at Master Rome and whispered. He was still puzzled. There were many nobles and 10th-tier powerhouses who were lining up to ask Master Rome to forge a weapon for them, but Master Rome was interested in the request of a 4-year-old girl. Joey knew very well that this could be Master Rome's last work. It would be a pity for the whole continent if it was wasted because of a little girl's rude request. Do you think Crassus and Julian are fools? With their personalities, they were able to compromise and accept little Amy as their disciple. She must be very talented and has a bright future. Master Rome smiled and continued, moreover, even though she's only 4 years old and is still very weak now, the weapon I want to make is the strongest weapon that she can still use when she becomes a top powerhouse. Joey thought for a while and said worriedly, but if that's the case, I'm afraid that the weapon won't be able to occupy a good position on the weapon ranking list. Haha, that's just a boring ranking list. To be on the list, the strength of the weapon user is more important than the weapon itself. Master Rome shook his head. The Tian-Du sword is just a hard and heavy sword. It was made in the early years for practice, but because of Alex, it's ranked 3rd on the weapon ranking list. But there are very few swords in the world that are harder and heavier than this, Joey corrected him. The master always looked at his previous works with a harsh eye. Even the Tian-Du sword had been criticized by him as worthless. However, it was also because of people like Master Rome that he could continue to climb the peak and create legendary weapons one after another. Tell the workshop to speed up the construction. We'll go back to our residence. Master Rome closed his eyes and began to think of a new weapon in his mind. He was very clear that the challenge this time would be unprecedented. However, it was also because of this that his heart, which had been silent for a long time, began to throb. Yes. Joey softly replied. He instructed the coachman to return to his residence and sat in the corner without making a sound. Ding. The system has noticed that the host has opened a hotpot restaurant and has taken an important step in spreading delicacies in the other world. New mission, the number of diners in the new hotpot restaurant must reach 1,000 on the first day. Mission success, you will receive a recipe for mutton soup. Mission failure, head to the northwest and collect sheep dung for half a month. The system's voice suddenly rang in Meg's mind. Meg was stunned and frowned. System, are you serious about picking up sheep dung for half a month? Genuine sheep dung, the system replied. Today's business hours are almost over, and you suddenly gave me such a mission. The hotpot restaurant will open tomorrow. Where am I going to get 1,000 diners for you? Meg rolled his eyes in annoyance. This system was too fucking unreliable. Mana Hotpot Restaurant had not made any announcements yet. It would not be easy to fill up the restaurant on the first day of business. Back then, Mimi's waited for its first customer with great difficulty, and it took a long time to fill up the restaurant with customers. He did not want to go to the northwest and pick up sheep dung. That was not as easy to pick up as cow dung. Seeing that the system did not say anything, Meg looked into the restaurant. It was almost the end of the business hours, and the customers were already preparing to leave. I can't let this batch of customers leave. Meg put down the spatula and wiped his hands with a towel. He walked out of the kitchen and smiled. Excuse me, everyone. I have something to announce. Tomorrow, Mana Hotpot Restaurant opened by Reina, the person in charge of Mamie's Hotpot area, will officially open for business. The era of affordable hotpot will begin. Everyone is welcome to try it. Go out and turn left. It's about 500 meters away. The customers looked at Meg in silence for a moment, and then they burst into an uproar. Oh my God, did Mr. Mac open a new hotpot restaurant behind our backs? Affordable hotpot. Does that mean the price is cheaper than Mamie's hotpot? Mamie's hotpot costs more than 1,000 yuan per person if we order a few more pieces of meat. It's a little heart-wrenching. I wonder what the price of the new hotpot restaurant is like. Mamie's is on holiday tomorrow. I was just worried about not having a place to eat. Let's try the new hotpot restaurant. The customers showed great enthusiasm for the new hotpot restaurant. Is the boss promoting it personally? Reina, who was in the kitchen, looked at Meg in surprise when she heard the commotion. She was worried that there would be no business tomorrow. It was her first time opening a restaurant, so she did not know how to promote it. Meg returned to the kitchen with a smile. The response was good. Although there were less than 1,000 people, at least the problem of the hotpot restaurant's first batch of customers was solved. Everything was difficult at the beginning. The most frightening thing about opening a new restaurant was that there would be no customers to try it. As long as the restaurant was lively, it would naturally stimulate the desire of the onlookers to try it out and bring in the first batch of customers. As for whether the customers who tried it out could become regular customers, that would depend on how well they cultivated their inner strength. Meg was not worried about that at all. He had eaten at Mana Hotpot Restaurant before. The hotpot base was very unique, and the spicy and clear soup had their own merits. The ingredients were high quality and fresh, and the key was that the price was less than 20% of Mamie's. The restaurant closed for business, and the cleaning work was quickly completed with 2 to 3 spells. Meg looked at the crowd and smiled. Tomorrow is a rest day. Reina's Hotpot Restaurant will officially open for business tomorrow. If you have nothing else to do, you can go to the restaurant and help out. It might be a little busy on the first day of opening. Okay, I will go tomorrow morning, Yabamiya raised her hand and said. Although I want to sleep in, if there is hot pot to eat, that will be fine, Barbara also raised her hand and said. Everyone expressed their intentions and prepared to go to Reina's place to help out tomorrow. Actually, the restaurant has already arranged everything. The employees have also undergone very strict training and drills. They should be able to handle it. Reina looked at the crowd and shook her head with a smile. It is not easy for everyone to have a rest day. How can I let you continue to help out? However, everyone can come to the restaurant to eat hot pot tomorrow. It's my treat. Since Reina can handle it, then we will not go and cause trouble. We can just focus on being customers. Meg nodded. It seemed like Reina was already prepared. Oh right, then you can call up all your friends tomorrow. It's my treat. Let's go to Reina's Hotpot Restaurant for hot pot, Meg looked at the crowd and said. No pop-up window. Chapter 1669. Ding. The system solemnly reminds the host that you are not allowed to invite your friends and family to a meal. The number of new customers that you invite in this way will be counted as -3. The system's voice sounded in Meg's mind. Meg raised his brow. He realized that things were not that simple. Can I invite all my friends? Then I'll get to know a lot of friends. Amy started counting with her fingers. Jessica, Daphne, Ignatsu. Can we invite all the night elves? Phyrus asked 20,000 night elves. Meg raised his brow. He could not allow that. He coughed softly and said, in order not to take up too many seats, we can only take up 2 tables at most on the opening day. As for the other friends, let's invite them a few days later. Everyone nodded. They had no objections to that. Meg heaved a sigh of relief. He looked at Raina and said, Raina, have you prepared any opening activities for the opening day? I plan to give away a set of duck intestines to every table, Raina said with a nod. Alright, but I suggest we only do this for a day. Reputation and a stable taste are the foundation of a restaurant's longevity, Meg said with a nod. Raina nodded thoughtfully. She had originally prepared a week of opening activities, but Meg's words were like a blow to the head, making her decide to cancel all the follow-up activities. Mamie's had never lowered their prices or given away any side dishes, but it still dominated the #1 restaurant in Chaos City with its delicious food. Mana Hot Pod restaurant's prices were already very low compared to Mamie's, and she was very confident in the taste. Everyone has worked hard today. Let's go back and rest first, Meg said to everyone with a smile. Boss, you said Shirley is back. Will they come for hot pot tomorrow? I haven't seen little cutie Anna for a few days, Yabamiya asked. I will invite them tomorrow. I think they will come. Meg nodded with a smile. This hot pot restaurant is really big. It's twice as big as our restaurant. How did such a hot pot restaurant suddenly appear? That's right. Once this hot pot restaurant opens, our family's business will definitely be gone. Outside Mana Hot Pot restaurant, a man in a mink coat and a man in a cotton coat were mumbling with their necks shrunk. There was a tinge of jealousy in their tone. Boss, it looks like they are going to officially open for business tomorrow. I'm afraid they can accommodate thousands of people at the same time. If the price is lower, some of our customers will definitely be taken away by them. What should we do? The shopkeeper wearing a cotton coat said with a worried face. What else can we do? You can't stop them from opening a shop. Kasha rolled his eyes and took another look at the luxuriously decorated hot pot restaurant before turning to board the carriage that was parked at the side. We'll organize a big event tomorrow. All the dishes in our hot pot restaurant will be buy one get one free, and the fruit wine will be free, Kasha said in a deep voice after getting into the car. Boss, we won't be able to make any profit if we do that, the shopkeeper said worriedly. We have to do it even if we can't make any profit. We have to crush this new hot pot restaurant with our activities and snatch all the customers over. We still have a long way to go to make money. You go to the market and pick the cheaper ones to minimize the cost, Kasha said with a stern expression. Kasha said with a sullen face, also, send a few people to their shops tomorrow to take a look and see what they're selling. The few markets in the south of the city belong to our family. It won't be a problem to block their supply chain. All right. The shopkeeper quickly nodded. I would like to see which other hot pot restaurant in Chaos City apart from Mamie Restaurant can beat us. A cold smirk appeared on Kasha's face. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant was brightly lit, and the aroma of the hot pot base was wafting in the big kitchen on the second floor. A few big pots that were taller than a person were boiling soup stock. The elves were busy preparing for the first day of business in an orderly manner. Be careful. Pack the hot pot base in advance, and control the amount well, Raina instructed everyone in the kitchen with a tinge of nervousness in her expectant expression. Raina walked to a middle-aged elf with a smile, and said, Annette, you have to accompany me to the market at 3 p.m. tonight to buy ingredients. You can go and rest now. It's all right, boss. I'm not sleepy at all. Annette shook her head. She looked at Raina with heartache and said, "You've been working for the whole day, so you should go and rest first. Just leave the ingredients to me. I've already memorized the shops and stalls. I'll go and rest for a while, but I have to go with you to get the ingredients." Raina shook her head tiredly and said, "Apart from the hot pot base, the most important thing when eating hot pot is to ensure the quality of the ingredients. We have to control this well. Otherwise, this business won't last long." "All right." Annette nodded. Although they hadn't worked together for long, she already knew how stubborn this young boss could be when it came to certain things. Mana Hot Pot restaurant was located near the southwest corner of the Aden Square. With the strong driving effect of Amy's, the originally deserted southwest corner of the square gradually became lively. There were restaurants everywhere, and it gradually became another dining hotspot in the Aden Square. There was a group of restaurants that were rather special, such as Fox Grilled Fish, Carmen Roast Duck Restaurant, Evan Roast Beef Kebabs. These restaurants were almost split from Amy's menu, and then became a new restaurant. These restaurants were priced in the mid-range to cater to customers who couldn't afford Mamie Restaurant's exorbitant prices, but were very interested in the legendary dishes of Mamie Restaurant. It had to be said that there were quite a number of such customers, and they contributed a lot of revenue to those restaurants. However, when those customers came out of the restaurants, most of them didn't look very satisfied. The hot-tempered ones even spat in the direction of Amy's, and said disdainfully, "What dogs hit grilled fish? It's so expensive. It's just a so-so." Meg rode the bicycle with Amy to invite Shirley and Anna. On the way back, they happened to meet two men who came out of a shop called Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. "What dogs hit hot pot? They even eat duck intestines. It smells like duck poop. I think there's something wrong with this boss's head. He thinks we're all fools," a man said with a wretched face as he held onto a tree trunk and vomited a few times. "I heard that this hot pot method was invented by the boss of Amy's. This plate of duck intestines costs 100 copper coins at his place. Fortunately, we didn't go to his place. We were almost cheated." The other man also had a complicated expression. "Isn't that so? I think that Amy's is just a so-so. I even heard that they eat pig's brains." "Is that something humans eat?" the man holding onto the tree said as he turned around. A fireball the size of a thumb pierced through the spot where he was holding onto the tree, leaving a hole the size of a bullet hole. The other man shuddered, and his eyes widened as he looked at the father and daughter who were riding a strange thing slowly passing by. "Why do you look like you've seen a ghost?" the man said with a smile as he patted him on the shoulder, completely unaware of what had happened. No pop-up window. Chapter 1670. No. Nothing. The man gulped. After making sure that the strange father and daughter had gone far away, he realized that his back was soaked in cold sweat. If it weren't for the scorched hole on the tree and the burnt smell in the air, he wouldn't have believed that the small fireball that the cute little girl threw out was so terrifying. "What? Let's go somewhere else to drink." The man quickly put his arm around his friend's shoulder and walked away quickly. After confirming with his friend's eyes, he knew that they couldn't afford to offend them. He didn't know how they had offended them, but it was better to talk less and drink more. "Father, they are bad-mouthing our restaurant. Why don't you let me teach them a lesson?" Amy sat on a small chair and looked at Meg, who was riding in front of her, puzzled. "Bickering with people like them is lowering your status to the same level as theirs. Theoretically, it's possible, but not necessary." Meg smiled and shook his head. It was not the first time he had heard such wise words. Ever since there were more and more low-quality imitations of Mamie's restaurants on this street, he often heard customers who had eaten at the imitations and casually changed the names of the dishes. They would also greet him and Mamie's together. Meg was helpless about this. His customers all praised the imitations, but those low-quality imitations were really disappointing. The grilled fish was either medium well or charred, and the fried rice was either soup or rice crust fried rice. The most infuriating thing was still the Buddha jumps over the wall. It was a pot of messy stew, and they dared to throw anything into it. Were they not afraid of eating it to death? The low-quality imitations ruined the reputation of a dish. These businesses were all eyeing the money and were not willing to put in the effort to study it. Even if they came to Mamie's a few more times, they wouldn't end up in such a state. However, Mag couldn't care less if their dishes tasted awful. He couldn't ask them to close down their restaurant, could he? There was no such thing as copyright protection in this world. Even in his previous life, different restaurants could make the same dish taste all kinds of different things. Then, are we just going to let them scold us? Amy pouted and said unhappily. Of course not. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant is the beginning of our counterattack. Meg smiled and said, we have to let them know what a real hot pot is. Even if it's a cheap hot pot, there has to be a benchmark. Those who fool around will eventually be eliminated. Yes, eliminate them all. Amy nodded her little head. Looks like there are quite a lot of people here. From afar, he could already see dozens of colorful flower baskets placed in front of Mana Hot Pot Restaurant. Customers were coming in and out, and it looked quite lively. The atmosphere of the opening was very strong. In his mind, the progress bar had jumped to 56/1000. Meg's bicycle stopped in front of the door. Raina, who was welcoming customers at the door, came up to them with a smile. Boss, little Amy, you're here. You're the boss today. Meg said with a smile as he carried Amy out of the car and looked at Raina, who was wearing a long red dress today. Raina smiled shyly and quickly said, let's go in first. I've reserved a private room for everyone on the second floor. There's no need for a private room. We'll eat in the lobby on the first floor. However, Meg shook his head and smiled. There needs to be an atmosphere in eating hot pot. You don't have to worry about us. Amy and I will wait for them. Okay. Raina nodded and continued to welcome the customers with a smile. Meg stood at the side with Amy. He glanced at the flower baskets at the side, and his eyes narrowed. Out of the 16 flower baskets, 8 of them were bright red rose baskets, and the other 8 were more gentle and sober. They had the following words written on them: Congratulations to Mana Hot Pot Restaurant for its opening, Hill Buffett. Congratulations to Mana Hot Pot Restaurant for its opening, Gloria Moraton. These were specially sent by a florist this morning. They were ordered by Miss Hill from the Buffett family and Miss Gloria from the family Moraton. They should be for you, boss, Mana explained with a smile when she saw Meg staring at the flower baskets. It's a little weird to put them together. Meg raised his eyebrows. He did not know where the two of them heard the news and sent the flower baskets over. However, he felt that it was a little weird to put them together like this. Big Sister Hill and Big Sister Gloria really care about you, Father. Amy blinked and leaned closer to Meg. She whispered, does Mother know? She has something to do today, so she won't be coming to eat hot pot with us. Meg smiled and patted Amy's head. He was not afraid at all. Is that so? We agreed to eat together tonight. Amy tilted her head and looked at Meg. It's just a gift of a flower basket for a friend's opening. It shouldn't be a problem, right? Meg began to ponder. You have to tell Mother that. If she believes it, then it shouldn't be a problem, Amy said with a smile. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant. This restaurant is quite big. Today is the first day of opening, and every table will be given a set of duck intestines. Why don't we give it a try? Don't worry. I've heard of this hot pot before. It said that it was popularized by Mamis. The average cost per person is more than 1,000. We're just having a casual lunch. There's no need to spend so much money on it. TSK, 1,000 per person. That's a little expensive. Two orcs stood at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant and whispered to each other. They exchanged glances and prepared to go to another restaurant. Oh, Mr. Mac, little boss, why are you here too? Is this Mana hot pot restaurant really a branch of Mamis? A fat man walked past the two of them and went straight to the father and daughter standing at the entrance. Isn't that the boss of Mamis? That cute half-elf girl must be the legendary little boss. She's really lovable. This hot pot restaurant is actually a branch of Mamis. It said that hot pot originated from Mamis. I didn't expect the boss to open a branch so close to this place. The cheapest food in Mamis costs 200 copper coins, and the average cost per person for a hot pot meal is more than 1,000 copper coins. Looks like we don't have to consider this restaurant anymore. If this is a branch of Mamis, then the taste will definitely be good. Let's have lunch here today. The people who were watching the opening of the new restaurant and were considering whether to spend money in the restaurant started to discuss softly. Some of them started to worry about the high cost, while others decided to spend money in the restaurant because of Mamie's reputation. Meg looked at Harrison, who started to pant after taking a few quick steps. He shook his head with a smile and said, "It's not considered a branch. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant is a professional hot pot restaurant that specializes in affordable hot pot. The average cost per person for a normal adult is about 100 copper coins. So cheap. I remember that the last time I had hot pot, a pig's brain cost 100 copper coins. Here, we only need 100 copper coins per person to fill our stomachs." Harrison looked at Meg with a surprised expression. "That's for normal humans. If it's you, Big Brother Blue Fatty, you should be considered too. For normal humans, so it costs 250 copper coins," Amy corrected him. "Not bad," Meg praised as he patted Amy's head. Chapter 1671. Harrison opened his mouth and snorted proudly. "I can eat 3 servings. Big Brother Blue Fatty, you'll scare the pretty ladies like this, and you won't be able to find a wife," Amy warned seriously. Harrison thought for a while. "Then I'll eat less. Please come in." Meg nodded with a smile and gestured for Harrison to go in. "Then I won't stand on ceremony. When George and his family arrive later, please show them the way." Harrison hurried into the restaurant excitedly, 100 copper coins per person. The customers at the restaurant's entrance were all shocked and they saw Harrison waddling in. Mamie's exorbitant prices were no longer a rare thing in Chaos City. A meal could easily cost hundreds or thousands of copper coins, and that made many people who did not have enough money to afford it stay away. Meanwhile, the new restaurants with strange names that were said to have been taught by Mamie's became a place for people to go to satisfy their curiosity. Usually, people who went to such restaurants would have 2 reactions. One would think that they had really gone to Mamie's and praised the deliciousness of that dish generously. The other would be disgusted by that strange dish, and then blame it all on Mamie's, and even trample it into the ground. Everyone knew that those rich people were not fools, but they did not want to admit that they could not afford to eat at Mamie's, so they went to eat at a restaurant that was imitating it. Hence, many people could only be furious. But today, the boss of Mamie's actually opened a hot pot branch, and the price had dropped from 1,000 copper coins per person to 100 copper coins per person. How could it not cause a commotion? 100 copper coins. You can't afford to lose out. You can't afford to be fooled. Why don't we go in and give it a try? Let's give it a try. I want to see if this hot pot is really as amazing as the rumors say. The two orcs who were about to go to another restaurant turned around and went into the hot pot branch. As long as this boss is not trying to ruin his reputation, this hot pot must be better than other restaurants. Let's eat here for lunch today. Mr. Mac is on stage. It can't be wrong. This flower basket is a gift from Miss Hill of the Buffett family and Miss Gloria of the family Moreton. There's no mistake about it. Some of the customers who were originally hesitating whether or not to enter the restaurant finally made up their minds and rushed into the hot pot restaurant. +1 +1 +1. Meg looked at the number of new customers in his mind, which quickly exceeded 100, and the corners of his mouth began to curl upwards. Raina was also beaming with joy. After informing Meg, she turned around and entered the restaurant to prepare for the reception. The herd mentality in the food and beverage industry was very serious. After all, between a deserted restaurant and a lively one, 99% of people would choose the lively one, because popularity was often the proof of good taste. Therefore, the endless stream of customers entering Mana Hot Pot restaurant made some passers-by want to enter the restaurant to give it a try. Entering a newly opened restaurant to spend money, there was no reference to its reputation. It was a game of heartbeat. Of course, the regulars of Mamie's who received Meg's notice last night were not included in this list. Most of them greeted Meg and Amy familiarly and went straight into the hot pot restaurant. Mr. Mac was the golden signboard. If even Mr. Mac could not be trusted, then there was nothing to look forward to in Chaos City's culinary world. Boss, Amy, Mia and the rest came together, and waved at Meg and the rest from afar. Anna and the rest didn't come. Mia looked around. They're here. Amy pointed behind them with her little pink finger. A rental horse-drawn carriage stopped, and Shirley was holding Anna's hand as they alighted from the horse-drawn carriage. Shirley, you're back. That's great, Mia said happily as her eyes lit up when she saw Shirley walking over. Everyone greeted her one after another. I'm fine. Sorry to have made everyone worried, Shirley said apologetically with a nod. All right, everyone is here. Let's go in and find a seat. Let's chat while we have the hot pot. Meg smiled and interrupted everyone's chatter. He held Amy's little hand and led the way into the hot pot restaurant. Once they entered the restaurant, they saw that there were over 100 hot pot tables in the hall that was over 1,000 square meters. There were simple partitions between the tables, but the space was very transparent. At this moment, there were already over a dozen tables with smoke rising. The aroma of the spicy hot pot wafted in the hall, and the atmosphere was getting more and more lively. The hall that could accommodate hundreds of people eating at the same time would be very spectacular if it was full of people eating hot pot together. Let's sit here. Meg chose a corner seat by the window and sat down. The number of new customers in his mind started to increase slowly and steadily after a short burst of growth. The upward trend was not bad, and there was still hope for the number of new customers to exceed 1,000 on the first day. Meg couldn't be bothered to continue staring at it, and sat down to flip open the menu. Wow, the price of this dish is unbelievably low. A serving of pig's brain is only 25 copper coins. A serving of beef is only 35 copper coins. Even my favorite duck intestine is only 25 copper coins. Harrison, who was sitting not too far away from Meg and the rest, was already looking at the menu and immersing himself in surprise. Such a low price. Won't Big Sister Raina suffer a loss? Barbara looked at the menu, and asked softly with concern. No one will do a losing business. To be able to offer such a price, it means that Raina can guarantee that she will get the ingredients at a good price. Meg shook his head with a smile. He trusted Raina's judgment and attitude. Big Sister Raina is really a capable lady boss, Yabamiya praised emotionally. Order whatever you want. It's my treat today. Meg turned the menu to everyone. This is not good. Initially, everyone was just watching the show. After that man spoke for a while, all the customers went in. Now, it is really lively, a man said anxiously as he stomped his feet as he watched the customers enter Mana Hot Pot restaurant one after another from a distance away. This won't do. Raising a tiger will only invite calamity, another man said with a frown. Then what should we do? Watch me. Don't do anything rash. The boss specially instructed us to reduce the price. We can't touch this restaurant, and we don't dare to touch it. Don't worry, I'm not stupid. That man tidied his clothes and walked towards Mana Hot Pot restaurant. Some customers gradually gathered at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant. They were looking at the opening announcement hanging on the signboard. Giving away a serving of duck intestine is nothing. That man walked into the crowd and said with disdain, I just passed by Kasha Hot Pot restaurant in front. All their dishes are buy one get one free, and they even have a free drinking event. It said that the average cost per person is less than 50 copper coins. What a nice business. Book House Reading Website. Chapter 1672. There's such a good deal. Buy one, get one free, and it's free to drink. Order a portion of soup base. I can drink until they close down. The man's words immediately caused a commotion in the crowd. Half the price, and free wine. This event was way better than Mana Hot Pot restaurants countless times. Isn't hot pot just a pot of soup with vegetables added to it? The taste of every restaurant is different. Choose Kasha Hot Pot restaurant. Everything is served in double portions, and you can drink as much wine as you want. The price is also affordable. Walk 500 meters forward. If you are late, you might not be able to get it, the man urged again with a smile. Go, go, go. Let's go try Kasha Hot Pot restaurant and see what hot pot is. Many people began to turn and leave after hearing that. The people gathered at the entrance dispersed immediately. Manager, that's a smart move. The skinny man looked at the man who returned with a smile and gave him a thumbs up. He fawned over the man and said, not only did we ruin their business, but we also brought many customers to our hot pot restaurant. These are all small tricks. If it weren't for the fact that the boss didn't allow me to do it, I would have found a few fierce-looking demons to move a chair to the door. I wouldn't have to do anything, and he wouldn't be able to open for business, the man said with a smug smile. Why is the boss so afraid of this hot pot restaurant? The skinny man was puzzled. I didn't know before. I only heard the boss say that this restaurant has a very strong backer. The Marquis family met them, and even their patriarch was implicated. However, the one with the half-elf girl just now was the boss of Amy's. The opening flower basket had the words Miss Hill from the Buffett family and Miss Gloria from the family Moreton written on it. They're obviously not to be trifled with. The man sneered. However, in business competition, everyone has their own means. As long as we don't do anything illegal, even the city lord's castle can't do anything to us. Let's see if our Kasha can outlast them first, or if they can outlast us first. Wonderful, wonderful. With our boss's ability, he's naturally not afraid to outlast them, the skinny man said with a smile. Of course. When we choke off their food supply chain, they'll have an even harder time, the manager said proudly. Boss, that person over there came out to make trouble and lured all the customers to the Kasha Hot Pot restaurant, the waiter at the door whispered angrily when he saw Reina coming out of the restaurant. Reina had come out to take a look because the number of customers had suddenly decreased. When she heard that, she followed the waiter's gaze and saw the fat and thin men standing next to the uncle across the street. She frowned and asked, what did they say? They told the customers who were about to enter that Kasha Hot Pot restaurant is having a promotion today. Buy one, get one free of charge for all the dishes. Moreover, all the drinks are free. Their prices are even half of ours. They even said that the hot pot is the same. Of course, they would want to eat the more cost-effective one. Thus, they tricked the customers away, the waiter said angrily. Buy one, get one free for all the dishes, and all the drinks are free. This kind of activity is already close to making a loss. This Kasha hot pot is not here with good intentions. Reina thought to herself. This hot pot restaurant was considered one of the bigger ones in the Aden Square. It was located not far from their dormitory, and she could see it every day when she went to work. The price of this hot pot restaurant was slightly higher than the average hot pot restaurant, but it was still much cheaper than Mamie's. With its classy renovation style and passable taste, its business was quite good. Reina had personally gone to all the hot pot restaurants in the Aden Square some time ago. Kasha Hot Pot's hot pot base was not considered authentic. It was far from the standard of Mamie's spicy hot pot. However, compared to the average hot pot restaurant that copied the original hot pot, Kasha hot pot at least had a spicy taste. The ratio of spices was also reasonable. It was a hot pot restaurant that could be eaten occasionally. For people who had never eaten Mamie's hot pot, it should be quite good. However, she had never seen them do any promotional activities on a normal day. She did not expect them to organize such a big promotion on Mana Hot Pot's opening day. It was obvious that they wanted to attack Mana Hot Pot. For a newly opened restaurant, it was very important to build a reputation in the early stages. A lively atmosphere could quickly build up popularity and reputation. Otherwise, for such a large-scale restaurant, just the daily expenses alone would be a huge sum of money. Normal people would not be able to afford it. The other party's strategy of sacrificing 800 to kill 1,000 enemies was most likely to use their strong capital to exhaust Mana Hot Pot. Boss, is our opening promotion too weak? The waiter asked softly. It would be terrible if all the customers were snatched away. No matter how strong the promotion is, it can only attract customers for a while. If we can't guarantee the quality of the dishes, it will narrow our path and cause us to lose more customers. Reina shook her head with a faint confident smile on her face. She looked at the two men who were peeking at her from afar, and said, as long as we stick to our principles and do a good job of quality control, our reputation and popularity will only increase. It won't depend on this temporary competition. The waitress looked at Reina, and her eyes gradually lit up. She could still remember the hard work that the boss and everyone had put in during this period of time. Mana's hot pot was worthy of the price, and she was confident that the customers would stay after eating it. This should be the place, right? Mana Hot Pot, Mamie's. Mr. Mac is really bad at naming. George laughed as he got out of the carriage with his baby daughter in his arms. He looked at the restaurant's name hanging on the signboard. I think it sounds pretty good, Palmer said as he got out of the carriage. Big sister, I want Big Sister Amy. Palmer wobbled out and grabbed Palmer's clothes. But she doesn't want you, Palmer said helplessly as he held Palmer's little hand. I think it sounds pretty good too. Mr. Mac is a talented person, Miranda said with a smile as she walked out with Angus, who was still sucking on a pacifier in his mouth. Trojan horse. Christy, who was in George's arms, pouted her little mouth and made a sound in the direction of the hot pot restaurant. All right. If you say it's nice, then it's really nice. Your Uncle Harrison must have arrived a long time ago. Let's go in, too. George smiled as he kissed Christy's cheek. He got out of the carriage, and walked towards the entrance of the restaurant. Another big business. Watch me. Manager Isaac tidied his clothes, and walked towards George's family. He stopped in front of them with a smile, and said, "Sir, are you bringing your family to eat hot pot together?" "Yes, are you a waiter?" George stopped in his tracks, and sized up the rather enthusiastic fat man in front of him. Although he was still a little lacking compared to himself, the quality of the waiter in this branch of Mr. Max had dropped a little. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1673. Isaac's expression froze. He shook his head with a smile, and said, "Of course I'm not a waiter in this hot pot restaurant. That's great. Seems like Mr. Mac didn't disappoint me." George nodded. His gaze had already gone past Isaac and landed on the two elven ladies in red uniforms standing at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant. Their noble and elegant temperament and elegant and calm smiles were a familiar feeling. "Please make way. We are going to eat." George retracted his gaze and saw that Isaac was still standing in front of him. He frowned as he didn't want to listen to any pre-meal advertisement. At this time, a small group of customers gathered in front of the hot pot restaurant. After all, this was a new restaurant. It was always a little difficult to decide whether to go in and try it or not. Moreover, it was such a luxuriously decorated restaurant. Looking at it, they felt that the price was not cheap. Isaac didn't expect George to be so impatient, but he didn't show any anger. Instead, he smiled and said, "Don't worry, sir. I'm not a bad person. I'm just an ordinary customer. I just heard that the Kasha hot pot restaurant in front." "All right, you don't have to say any more. I'm here to eat Mana hot pot restaurant. It's Mr. Mac's branch. Those who know what it means to have a golden reputation and guaranteed quality are naturally understood." George interrupted Isaac again. "This is indeed an advertisement, and this method is simply to snatch business." He didn't expect that someone would dare to do this in Mr. Mac's territory. The waitresses are all very pretty." Randy had just alighted from the horse-drawn carriage, and continued with a smile. Expert. George gave Randy a thumbs up. "You flatter me." Randy cupped his hands together, and walked past Isaac into the hot pot restaurant. Isaac was a little embarrassed as his tower was destroyed one after another. It was his first time meeting such a difficult customer. George was about to walk past Isaac with Chris in his arms, but he stopped when he reached him. He turned around to look at Miranda and the rest, and said, "Come, you guys walk in front." Miranda glanced at Isaac, carried Angus, and led Palmer and Parbert to the entrance of the restaurant. When the other customers who were still hesitating heard this, their interest was piqued. Who didn't know Amy's name? They were all prepared to go in and have a taste. Even if they didn't want to eat, they could at least take a look. "I'm just a warm-hearted person. I'm afraid that you guys don't know that the Kasha hot pot restaurant in front is holding a huge event today. The hot pot soup base is free, the dishes are buy one get one free, and all the fine wine is free to drink. The average cost per person is less than 50 copper coins. If you miss out on this, you'll..." George looked at him with a mocking expression and said, "Tell me, where did you get the money from? Let's get rich together." Isaac choked on the lines that he had thought of, and swallowed them back after a while. He smiled awkwardly and said, "What are you talking about? I don't understand." "Bro, we can only do this at noon." George patted Isaac's shoulder, and walked straight to the hot pot restaurant. "Why?" Isaac asked as he looked at George's back. "Something will happen sooner or later," George said without looking back. Isaac's expression changed, and he felt a hint of uneasiness in his heart. Meanwhile, a few customers followed George and his family into the hot pot restaurant. This hot pot restaurant is a little too big. Just the lobby on the first floor alone is comparable to a few Mamies, and there's even a second floor. Randy couldn't help but sigh when he saw the spacious lobby after entering the hot pot restaurant. In Chaos City, only Dukas restaurant could compare to a restaurant of this scale. However, the service staff are all elven ladies, and all of them have fair skin, beautiful features, and long legs. Mr. Mac is indeed Mr. Mac. Just this generosity alone is not something that ordinary restaurants can compare to. Randy looked around the lobby, and his gaze was attracted by those elven ladies in red and black uniforms. "Sir, are you alone, or do you have companions?" a service staff asked with a smile. Randy looked around, and pondered for a while before saying, Can I share a table?" "Sir, there are still many empty seats in the restaurant. You can choose any seat you like." "You don't have to share a table," the service staff replied with a smile. "Eating hot pot alone. Isn't it a little too sad?" Randy sighed softly. He had been sharing a table with Abraham recently, but Mamie's was closed today. He heard that Mr. Mac had opened a new hot pot restaurant at the last minute, so he specially came over to try it and see if he could use it as a new source of inspiration. However, he forgot about the awkwardness of eating hot pot alone. Even if it was a 9-square grid for each person, it would be lively, and he could even make some new friends. Those who ate hot pot were all talents, and they had nice words to say. "Brother, we're all alone, so let's share a table. We're all Mamie's regulars, and we often see you." A voice sounded behind Randy. Randy turned around, and saw a tall and thin man with a slightly pale face. His eyes lit up, and he said, "It's you, Mr. Kidney Deficiency. I'm Vasenio." Vasenio glanced at the elf who was covering her mouth and giggling at the side. His face was a little dark. Even if he looked a little weak, he shouldn't call him that in public. "Hello, I'm Randy." Randy smiled and introduced himself. He was quite familiar with this person. He often saw him come with a young woman with a hot figure, and he seemed to like eating Ruggiemo. However, he was alone today. Of course, the main reason was that he looked like he had been squeezed dry every time. It really left a deep impression. Although they hadn't spoken to each other before, since they were both regulars of Mamie restaurant, they could be considered as half acquaintances. It was much better than eating hot pot alone. The two of them hit it off immediately, and found a corner to sit down. Once they sat down, Randy couldn't wait to pick up the menu on the table. As soon as he flipped it open, his eyes lit up, and he said in surprise, "So cheap." On the top left corner of the menu were 3 soup pots to choose from: spicy soup pot, mushroom soup pot, and mandarin duck soup pot. The price was 30 copper coins each. The same hot pot soup base cost 200 copper coins each at Mamie's. However, the bone broth was really delicious and fragrant. He could drink 3 bowls of it just by drinking the broth. Looking further down, pig's brain was only 25 copper coins. Beef was only 35 copper coins each. Duck intestines were only 25 copper coins each. This price was almost 10 times lower than Mamie's. What's going on? Mr. Mac is so ruthless that he's even snatching his own business. Randy muttered. This price was basically pulling a high-cost meal like hot pot to the level of affordable consumption. Even ordinary office workers would be able to choose it as one of the options at their monthly gatherings. Randy lifted his leg and looked at Vasenio as he said, "Then let's order the spicy soup pot, and then order our own dishes." "That's good." Vasenio nodded in agreement. The two of them quickly ordered their dishes. While waiting for the dishes to be served, they also began to chat. "Why didn't your wife come with you today?" Randy asked with a smile. He had a deep impression of that enchanting young woman. She was 35 or 36 years old, the age where she was like a wolf. She looked like a wild wolf. No wonder Vasenio's body couldn't take it. She went to collect rent today, so she didn't have time to come. Vicenio shook his head. He looked at Randy and hesitated for a while before asking, "Brother, let me ask you something. Every time my wife sleeps, she sticks to me like an octopus. Is there any way to stop her from sticking to me?" Randy looked at Vicenio, and earnestly said, "When I was in school, the teacher always made me clean the blackboard. Actually, it wasn't that the blackboard was dirty, but that I didn't hand in my homework." Bookhouse Reading Website. Chapter 1674. Vicenio frowned and pondered for a while. He suddenly realized something, and bitterly said, "There's too much homework, and I can't finish it no matter what. This is not something that ordinary people can handle. This is how the world works. Those who suffer from drought die from drought, and those who suffer from drought die from drought." Randy patted Vicenio's shoulder and comforted him. "Brother, you still have to take care of your body. Otherwise, there will really be someone to carry your burden for you one day." Vicenio's expression changed slightly. He opened the menu and ordered 2 more pig's brains. "This thing can make up for that?" Randy asked in surprise. "No, I just want to calm down." Vicenio shook his head. Randy silently gave him a thumbs up. George and his family also entered the hot pot restaurant, and went straight to Harrison's table. However, halfway there, George saw Meg and the others sitting not far away. He turned a corner and came to Meg's table. He smiled and said, "Mr. Mac, you're all here for hot pot today." "Yes, we're here to support on the opening day." Meg nodded with a smile. Little sister Chris Amy had already jumped up from her chair. She raised her little hand to George and said, "Can you let me hug her?" "Big sister Amy, hug, hug." Parber let go of Palmer's hand, and wobbled over to Amy with a happy smile on his little face. "Stop." Amy reached out and pressed her hand against Parber's forehead. She looked at him, who had opened his arms, and shook her head. "I refuse." Parber's smile froze instantly. His mouth moved, and he turned to Palmer and cried in his arms. As he cried, he said, "Big brother, big sister Amy won't hug me again. I want to be a little sister, I want to be a little sister." Palmer helplessly patted his poor little brother's back. "Here, for you." George carefully handed Chris to Amy, and only retracted his hand after she hugged her firmly. Yeah, Chris immediately smiled happily when she was hugged by Amy. She even let out a soft and cute sound. Her 2 bright eyes stared at Amy, and she was overjoyed. Miranda smiled and stroked Parber's head. She looked at Amy and said, "Chris doesn't want her brothers to carry her. It seems like she likes big sister Amy the most. Yeah, she's not even that happy to see me." George was a little jealous. "It's probably because good-looking people like good-looking people," Amy said with a smile. She kissed Chris on the cheek, making the little girl squeak and laugh happily. "The little guy is getting cuter and cuter." Meg looked at Chris, who was in Amy's arms. The little girl was fair and tender, and her light blonde hair was slightly curly. It was as if she was wearing a wig, and she looked extremely adorable. As regular customers of Amy's, everyone was quite familiar with George and his family. Mia couldn't help but get up to play with Chris for a while Gina used a colorful bubble to easily cheer up the crying Parber again. George walked to Meg's side, and lowered his voice as he said, "Mr. Mac, I have something to tell you. When I entered just now, I met a guy who was blocking customers at the entrance of the restaurant. He directly promoted Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant's promotion, saying something like, 'Buy one, get one free, and free drinks.' I saw that many interested customers were deceived by him. I know you definitely wouldn't care about such low-level competition tactics, so I just wanted to inform you. There's such a thing." Meg frowned. No wonder there was a sharp decrease in the number of people entering the restaurant just now. It turned out that there was someone outside who intercepted them. Perhaps it was because Amy's rose too quickly, and they soon entered the stage where they didn't need to worry about customers. Therefore, Meg had almost never experienced any business competition. Even if there were a few foolish people who came to challenge him, they would just foolishly charge at him and be killed by him. This was the first time he had seen someone who directly stood at the entrance and intercepted them. Then you guys take your time eating. We'll go over first. George took Chris back from Amy's arms and led the family to Harrison's table. Yeah, Chris raised her little paws and waved at Amy as if she was saying goodbye. Little sister Chris is so cute. I like her so much. Amy sat down again, looked at Meg, and said, Father, when can I have a little sister of my own? All the girls at the table looked at Meg. If Amy wanted a little sister, then she had to have a mother first. You will have a little sister. Come, this duck intestine is going to be overcooked if you don't eat it. Meg calmly put the duck intestine that he had just cooked into Amy's bowl. Wow! As expected, Amy's attention was immediately attracted by the duck intestine in her bowl. She started chewing on the crispy duck intestine. Was this something he could decide? It would depend on when Irina wanted to have a second child. As for the guy who intercepted the customers outside, Meg thought for a while and decided to ignore him for now. He had previously agreed with Raina that he would not interfere with the new hot pot restaurant and would be a quiet investor. Although the other party was not very ethical, they were still competing within the framework of the law. He could not let Amy go out and burn him with a fireball. This kind of thing would definitely happen in the future. He believed that Raina would be able to solve it with her ability. However, looking at the number of new customers in his mind, which was less than 200, he had the urge to go out and kill that guy. If he did not complete the mission, not only would he lose the mutton soup, but he would also have to go to the extreme cold of the Northwest to pick up sheep dung for 3 months. To hell with picking up sheep dung. I think this hot pot is delicious too. Although the base of the pot is a little different, it gives off a different kind of spicy feeling. The soup in the mushroom soup is also very fresh. It has more flavor than the bone broth. Raina is really amazing. Phyllis's forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat as she ate. Yeah, the duck intestine is super fresh. It's crispy and tender. It's delicious. Mia nodded in agreement. I love this spicy beef. It's so delicious. It's spicy, tender, and juicy. It's a new dish that even Mamie's doesn't have. Barbara said in surprise. To be able to control the cost of the ingredients to such a low level and at the same time ensure the quality of the ingredients, it's really amazing. Meg nodded in agreement. Raina did not have a system that could provide the best ingredients. Choosing the best ingredients from the best suppliers and buying the best ingredients from them was not easy. Although the quality of the ingredients was not as good as Mamie's, to be able to gain the approval of Mia and the others was enough to prove Raina's seriousness and excellence. A hot pot of this quality that cost 100 copper coins per person was enough to be called a businessman with a conscience. As for Kasha Hot Pot, they had already lost from the moment they started the buy one get one free campaign. Cheap prices could not keep customers. Quality was the only way to survive in the food and beverage industry. Wonderful Book House. Chapter 1675. Isaac looked proudly at the group of customers who had successfully given up on trying Mana Hot Pot under his guidance and headed to Kasha. Although they had failed a few times, more customers still chose Kasha, which was more active and had been open for a longer time. This Mana Hot Pot restaurant seems to be blocked by me alone. It's too weak. Isaac smiled proudly. He was a little worried that the other party would send someone to mess with him. However, when he saw the two elven ladies standing at the door and looking at him with their big watery eyes, he realized that they couldn't even scold him. Obviously, his worry was unnecessary. Of course, if the other party really dared to make a move, he would dare to lie in front of the door today. Anyway, it was the first day of opening, so he definitely wouldn't let the other party have a good time. Boss, that restaurant in front seems to be Mr. Mac's new hot pot restaurant, but they don't seem to have set up a table outside. Did we bring the chairs for nothing? Keel asked Sargeras as he carried the iron chair on his shoulder. I heard from them that the hot pot is very spacey, and we will catch fire once we eat it. We can't make things difficult for Mr. Mac, Sargeras muttered. Keel and the others had been talking about eating hot pot for a while, but Mamie's hot pot was really too expensive. One meal was worth a few rugiamos, so they couldn't bear to part with it. Sargeras only brought the founding team of the Burning Legion to try out the new hot pot restaurant last night when he heard from Mr. Mac that the food was cheap. Then what should we do? Our Burning Legion will catch fire sooner or later. We can't eat in the restaurant. Mon scratched his head anxiously. Let's go to the restaurant and ask if they can set up a table outside for us. If they can't, then we won't eat it, Sargeras said. A row of 6 lava demons, either carrying iron chairs, walked towards the hot pot restaurant in an imposing manner. It was quite eye-catching. Manager, this is big business. The skinny man nudged Isaac. Isaac turned around and saw the 6 lava demons walking over aggressively. He swallowed his saliva subconsciously. These demons looked too scary. However, based on his experience, these demons' appetite was at least 3 to 4 times that of a normal person. The 6 of them could finish a dish for 20 people. It was indeed a big business. Watch me. Isaac tidied his clothes and put on a smile as he walked quickly towards the lava demons. Bam! Isaac had just steadied himself, and before he could say anything, he was sent flying by Sargeras, who was walking over quickly. Sargeras's footsteps stopped, and he looked around in confusion. He seemed to have knocked something just now. The other demons also stopped and looked at Sargeras. Boss, over there, Keel said as he pointed at Isaac, who had been sent flying 2 meters away. Sargeras and the other demons looked down at Isaac at the same time, and only then did they see this fat and short man. Why did you bump into me? Sargeras asked Isaac, who was rubbing his butt and getting up. I knocked you down. Isaac felt as if he had been knocked by a wild bull. He didn't even have the chance to reason with the other party, and the other party had already accused him. How despicable. However, when he raised his head, he saw 5 ferocious faces looking down at him. Complicated and terrifying lava patterns were carved on their faces, and their bell-sized eyes were glaring at him as if they would tear him apart the next moment. The fear that arose made his legs tremble. Although this was Chaos City, he didn't feel the sense of security brought by the law. Any demon could twist his head off easily. Our big brother is asking you a question, Mon said arrogantly. The other demons also widened their eyes in shock. Sorry. I didn't do it on purpose. Isaac quickly apologized. He felt so wronged. What kind of world was this? I'll let it go this time. Watch where you're going next time. Sargeras retracted his gaze, and prepared to continue walking towards the hot pot restaurant. Be careful next time, all the demons reminded him carefully. Yes, yes, yes. Isaac nodded rapidly. He was caught off guard by the big boss's sudden concern. However, seeing that Sargeras was about to walk past him to man a hot pot restaurant, he clenched his teeth, and said, I'm very sorry for offending you, my lord. As an apology, I would like to recommend a hot pot restaurant to you. It's half the price of this hot pot restaurant. Also, the dishes are buy one get one free, and the drinks are free. It's right in front. It's called Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. Sargeras stopped in his tracks. He looked down at Isaac and asked, "Is that hot pot restaurant opened by Mr. Mac as well?" Isaac was so frightened by Sargeras' aura that he took 2 steps back. He shook his head and said, "And no." Sargeras frowned. He raised his voice and said, "Then, did I ask you? You just nagged me to recommend a lousy restaurant. Do you think I'm gullible? Do you think our boss is gullible?" Keel, Mond, and the others formed a circle and looked down at Isaac. How could that be? Isaac looked up at that ferocious face. He was about to cry. Why were these demons so unreasonable? You bumped into our boss first, and then you cheated us maliciously. Are you looking down on the Burning Legion? Keel kicked Isaac's knee. Isaac's legs gave way, and he knelt on the ground. Everyone from the Burning Legion kicked him. In the end, Mond grabbed him by the collar and threw him to the side. Everyone clapped their hands, and followed Sargeras to the hot pot restaurant. The 2 elves standing at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant were a little nervous and surprised at first. However, when they saw Isaac, who was beaten black and blue, being thrown out, they felt relieved. After being disgusted for the entire afternoon, they finally felt better. They even felt that the few ferocious-looking demons were much more amiable. Sargeras stood at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant. He rubbed his hands together and forced a smile on his face. He looked at that elf and said in a gentle voice, "Miss, I would like to ask if you can eat outdoor hot pot outside the restaurant." That elf looked at Sargeras, who was smiling honestly. She didn't know where the domineering aura that she had when she beat up Isaac had disappeared. She was stunned for a moment before she recovered. She shook her head and said, "I'm sorry, sir. We only have seats in the restaurant. We don't have outdoor seats. There are still many empty seats in the restaurant. Thank you, but we might catch fire if we eat hot pot. We can only eat outdoors." Sargeras was a little disappointed when he heard that. He turned around to look at the demons and said, "Seems like we can't eat today." That elf looked at Sargeras and the others, touched. She didn't expect them to be so considerate demons. She hesitated for a moment and said, "Please wait a moment. I can ask the boss." No pop-up window. Chapter 1676. Outdoor seating. Reina was a little surprised to see Sargeras and the others standing at the entrance of the restaurant. She had already heard from the waiter how they beat up that hateful guy who intercepted their customers. She recognized Sargeras and the others. They were Mamie restaurant's regulars. Every time they came, they would buy a lot of Rugiamos. Although they looked a little fierce, they were actually very polite. They would even lower their voices when they spoke. "Yes, but we don't have outdoor seating." The waiter nodded, a little hesitant. Reina smiled and said, "They helped us solve a problem, so it's not difficult to arrange an outdoor seating. According to the Aiden Squares shop rules, the restaurant is allowed to have outdoor seating 3 meters in front of the restaurant. Arrange a spare hot pot table at the entrance." "Okay." The waiter's eyes lit up, and he walked briskly to the warehouse. Soon, he carried a round hot pot table out of the door. "Our boss said he can set up an outdoor table for you," the waiter said to Sargeras and the others as he put down the round table gently on the right side of the door. "Thank you, miss," Sargeras said with a smile. The lava demons also smiled at the waiter, and sat down around the table with their folding chairs. "You're welcome. A waiter in charge of reception will come to take your order soon," the waiter said with a blush. She had heard many terrifying rumors about demons in the Wind Forest, but only after coming to Chaos City did she discover that the demons here weren't as terrifying as she had imagined. In fact, they were even a little adorable. Speaking of which, this is the first time we are sitting down to eat at Mamie's, Keel said with an excited chuckle. Yes, we were too embarrassed to sit there before. It's indeed more convenient to bring our own chairs, Mont said with a silly smile. This is Mana Hot Pot Restaurant, not Mamie's, Mazak corrected seriously. Anyway, they are all opened by Mr. Mac. Mamie's and Mana Hot Pot Restaurant are the same, Karzak mumbled. Alright, quiet down. Don't disturb Mr. Mac's business, Sargeras said with a dry cough. Sargeras coughed dryly. They had obviously received special treatment as an extra table was specially added for them. Give them a 50% discount when it's time to settle the bill, Reina whispered to the waiter who was about to take their order. All right. The waitress nodded. She had already heard that the demons outside had helped to beat up that disgusting guy and had a good impression of them. This is the menu, please order. The waiter walked to the table at the entrance and placed the menu in front of Sargeras. He smiled and said, the hot pot soup base is a must-have. You can choose any other dishes. Alright, let's take a look first. Sargeras nodded and flipped open the menu. Compared to Mamie's menu, which cost hundreds and thousands of copper coins, this menu was indeed much gentler to the wallet. The most expensive mala spicy beef only cost 45 copper coins per serving, and it weighed half a caddy. As for some vegetables such as lotus root and potatoes, they were all priced below 10 copper coins. Sargeras turned the menu to everyone and said generously, come, open it up. It's my treat today. Hee hee, this pig's brain looks good. I want 10 of it, Mont said with a silly smile. Casas pointed at the mala spicy beef and said, this beef looks good. I want 10 servings. I heard them say that duck intestines are delicious. I want 10 servings of duck intestines, too, Keel said without hesitation. The waitress at the side was a little surprised. There are actually people who order like that. Each person ordered 1 dish, and 10 servings at that. Is there anyone who orders like you? There's no skill involved at all. Sargeras took back the menu with disdain. He then smiled at the waitress and said, we want a mala spicy soup base, and 10 servings of each of the meat on the menu. The waitress was stunned, but her good training allowed her to control her expression quickly. She kept the menu, and nodded with a smile. All right, please wait a moment. The skinny man dragged Isaac to the side, and looked at the manager who was beaten into a pig's head. He asked carefully, manager, are you all right? Ugh. Tui. Isaac spat out half of his broken tooth. He squinted his swollen eyes, and wailed, I was almost beaten to death, I saw it. You fought a group of demons alone. You were so generous and brave. My blood boiled when I saw it, the skinny man said with admiration. Isaac glanced at that man from the side. That man also realized that his acting was a little exaggerated. He immediately changed the topic and said, look, manager. Those fellows who beat you up have already sat down at the entrance. They actually didn't enter. Could it be that this hot pot restaurant doesn't allow demons to enter? Upon hearing that, Isaac turned his head with difficulty to look in the direction of the hot pot restaurant's entrance. The moment he saw that group of demons, he felt his blood pressure rise crazily, and the injuries on his body became more painful. However, these guys were actually sitting at the entrance. He originally thought that they were hired thugs from the hot pot restaurant, but now it didn't seem like it. They couldn't even enter the hot pot restaurant. They just sat at the entrance in a somewhat shabby manner. They even brought their own chairs. However, they seemed to have already ordered, and were waiting for the dishes to be served leisurely. You actually dare to sit there leisurely and prepare to eat hot pot after beating me up like this? Isaac was furious. Manager, what do you think we should do? The skinny man immediately put on a posture that looked like he was ready to fight to the death. Help me up. Isaac struggled with a ferocious expression as he was helped up. You're not really going to do it, are you? The skinny man swallowed his saliva. Isaac looked at those burly lava demons, and actually became much weaker. He pointed at the entrance of the restaurant and said, I want to lie down there. Yes. If we can't beat them, let's make a scene and say that they're bullying their customers. The skinny man understood tacitly. Now that the hot pot restaurant's entrance was gradually becoming more crowded, they couldn't just let them go in like that. He helped Isaac walk towards the entrance of the hot pot restaurant. You're here again. Sargeras raised his head, and happened to see Isaac walking over. He frowned. Mon stood up, glared at Isaac, and said, You're here again, and you even found a helper. Are you trying to bully us with fewer people? All the lava demons stood up one by one, and looked at the two of them with their piercing cold gazes. There seemed to be flames dancing in their eyes, and they were about to burst out at any time. Isaac and the skinny man stopped in their tracks. Their faces turned pale instantly, and their legs started to tremble uncontrollably. These demons were completely unreasonable. We're just passing by. Please enjoy your food and drinks, sirs. Isaac put on a smile that was uglier than crying as he limped back silently with the skinny man who was almost frozen stiff. Bookhouse reading website. Chapter 1677. Isaac felt that he was too lowly. He was so lowly that he didn't even have the courage to lie on the ground and ask for compensation. But, what could he do? The other party was really ruthless. Their punches and kicks were not a joke at all. He had no doubt that his life would be over if he dared to walk over and lie on the ground. A wise man knew better than to fight when the odds were against him. He knew that. Supervisor, they outnumber us. Although we lost honorably, what should we do now? Go back to get reinforcements, the skinny man asked in a trembling voice as he came back to his senses and supported Isaac. Not yet. Let's observe the situation first. Isaac shook his head and glanced at Sargeras and the rest from the corner of his eyes. He sneered, and said, This boss is also a hothead. He thought that placing these ferocious demons at the door would be foolproof. Little did he know that by stopping us, he was also stopping the customers who wanted to enter the restaurant. If there was a table of such terrifying demons sitting in front of any restaurant, the customers passing by would be scared, let alone be interested in the restaurant. Brilliant idea, supervisor. The skinny man's eyes lit up. He helped Isaac sit down on the chair, and looked at him with admiration. Then, did you lose to them on purpose just now to lower their guard? Of course, this matter couldn't escape my calculations. Isaac pulled the wound on his buttocks as he sat down. He couldn't help but grimace as he looked in the direction of Mana Hot Pot Restaurant's entrance with a cold smile. A group of ferocious-looking lava demons sitting at the door was definitely a deterrent to the timid customers. They might even have the urge to take a detour. Not only would they not be able to attract customers, but they would also lose many customers. It gave people a sense of oppression as if the restaurant was bullying the customers. Mana Hot Pot Restaurant. What is hot pot? Is it a type of dish? Yes, this is the first time I've heard of it. Could it be a hot pot? Or a special kind of grilled meat? I saw a few restaurants with hot pot on the way here just now. It might be a delicacy that has become popular recently. Most of the passers-by would stop and take a few glances at the splendidly decorated Mana Hot Pot Restaurant. Most of the people who came here at this time were here to look for food. Unfortunately, Mimi's was closed today, so many people who wanted to try the food could only return empty-handed. As for hot pot, most people didn't know anything about it. It wasn't a name that had appeared in the food and beverage structure that they were familiar with. It was something that made people scratch their heads. Because of this, very few guests entered directly. Of course, the lava demons sitting at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant were indeed quite eye-catching. They looked like they were there to hold the fort and were not to be trifled with. Just as many customers were hesitating whether to enter or to go to the next restaurant, an elven waiter came out with a steaming bronze cauldron. He went straight to the demon's table and placed the cauldron in the round hole in the middle of the crowd. A hot and spicy aroma exploded like a bomb, instantly spreading in all directions. Ah! What is this? What a pungent smell! It smells so good. Wow, this fragrant and spicy smell makes people feel warm. It's really tempting in this cold winter. The aroma spread and immediately attracted the attention of the passers-by. Some customers with sensitive noses couldn't help but sneeze from the sudden spicy smell, while more customers were attracted by the steaming hot pot of soup. The surface of the bright red soup pot was covered with red dried chili. Steam rose, and the fragrant and spicy smell wafted over. Just looking at it made people feel hot in their throats and hot in their bodies. The elven waiter put down the soup pot, and twisted a spot on the table a few times. The soup pot on the table actually started to bubble, and soon, it started to boil. There's a fire under the pot. Is that why it's called hot pot? Could it be that it's being eaten while being cooked? It seems like these lava demons aren't hired thugs, but customers who are here to eat. The hot and spicy aroma wafting in the air, as well as the steaming soup pot, successfully aroused everyone's interest. They all stopped in their tracks, intending to see what kind of novel way of eating this hot pot was. Some passers-by were also attracted by the aroma and stopped in their tracks. The lava demons sitting in front of the pot were all flushed. This spicy aroma was a little beyond their expectations. Just a whiff of it made their blood flow faster, and they couldn't help but want to burn. "Boss, why do I feel like we should have chosen a clear soup pot?" Keel whispered. Sargeras glared at Keel and sternly said, "This concerns the reputation of the Burning Legion. If word gets out that the Burning Legion is eating a clear soup pot, how are we going to survive in the future?" All the demons nodded solemnly. "Then can we compromise with the Mandarin duck pot?" Mond whispered. "No, the Burning Legion will never compromise." Sargeras shook his head firmly. Four elven waiters pushed 4 four-level dining carts filled with various types of meat out, and stopped beside everyone. One of the waiters smiled, and said, "Dear customers, these are the dishes you ordered. As there are a lot of them, they are placed on the 4 dining carts. You can use them when you are cooking. This is a guide to cooking hot pot. It briefly introduces the method and time to cook each ingredient. As long as you follow the guide, you will be able to enjoy the delicious hot pot dishes. I wish you all a pleasant meal." "All right, thank you." Sargeras accepted the guide with a nod and a smile. "Why are they all raw dishes? Is the chef of this restaurant so lazy that he doesn't even cook for the customers?" "Yeah, this is the first time I've seen a restaurant that serves ingredients to the customers. Isn't this a joke? Do they want the customers to cook for themselves? If we have to cook for ourselves, then why would we come out to eat?" The onlookers looked at the plates of ingredients placed on the dining carts and were puzzled. This is the exclusive guide to eating hot pot. Whoever masters it can become the real king of hot pot. Sargeras slowly raised the guide in his hand. All the lava demons also looked up slowly, and stared at the guide as if they were looking at a treasure. They had been drooling over the hot pot for a long time, and now that they could finally get what they wanted, they gradually became excited. Sargeras flipped open the guide, and solemnly said, "The first step to eating hot pot is to make a suitable dipping sauce. First, pick up the small bowl beside us, and add minced garlic, chopped green onions, coriander, sesame oil according to the weight and preference of each person, all the lava demons picked up their small bowls, and added various spices according to Sardra's instructions. Chapter 1678. The way the group of ferocious lava demons were holding small spoons carefully, and adding all sorts of spices into the small bowls that were not even the size of their palms made one feel a little cold. However, this also made everyone a little curious. What was this seemingly ritualistic step used for? What was this dipping dish? How exactly was this hot pot eaten? Oh no, they used the aroma of the hot pot base to attract customers, and those demons are really here to eat the hot pot. Isn't this a living advertisement? Isaac slapped his thigh, and grimaced in pain as he panicked. This aroma. The skinny man sniffed seriously, and revealed an intoxicated expression. However, he quickly said seriously, "It's far inferior to our kasha hot pot." Of course. Isaac's expression twitched a few times, and he blushed as he replied. All the demons prepared the dipping sauce according to their individual tastes. Sargeras picked up the guide again, and continued to read, "Tripe, pick it up with chopsticks and place it in the boiling hot soup pot. Put it down for 1 second, lift it up for 1 second, and repeat the actions 8 times. Then, it can be eaten. Do not exceed the time limit, or you will lose your soul." Tripe? What's that? All the demons' gazes started to search the dining car. It's this. Sargeras took a plate of tripe from the topmost layer of the dining car beside him and placed it on the table. The thin, brownish-black tripe was soaked in the water, and its surface was full of wrinkles. However, it looked like there was quite a lot of it. All the demons took a plate of tripe each and placed it in front of them. We really have to do it ourselves. This is the first time I've seen this way of eating. But it sounds quite interesting. We have the soup pot, and the ingredients are all cut and prepared. We just have to pick it up with chopsticks and dip it in the pot. It's very simple. Can we really eat dishes that we made ourselves? I almost destroyed my own family the last time. All the onlookers were shocked and they heard that, and some of them were rather interested. I heard that tripe is very delicious. Let me try it first. Keel picked up the long chopsticks eagerly, and picked up a piece of tripe clumsily. Lava demons ate directly with their hands. It was too difficult for them to use chopsticks. The tripe was placed in the boiling hot pot, and the red soup surged. When Keel picked up the chopsticks again, the tripe was already gone. Oh! Keel was stunned and hurriedly scooped up the tripe with his chopsticks. The pepper and chili were rolling in the red soup, and the tripe was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no trace of the tripe. There's no need to fish it out. What's the point of having a tripe that has lost its soul? Mond patted Keel's shoulder and comforted him. Then, he picked up his chopsticks and picked up a piece of tripe. He smiled and said, "I've been practicing using chopsticks recently." Mond's tripe rose and fell 4 times in the red soup, but after the 5th time, it could not be picked up again. "Hot pot is indeed not simple," Mond said dejectedly as he looked at the empty chopsticks. Cassis, Marxa, and the others also tried to pick up the tripe, but they all ended up feeding it to the hot pot. They didn't even get a single strand of hair back. Ha! Seems like you all don't have the fortune to eat tripe. Sargeras sat upright, and picked up a piece of tripe with his chopstick solemnly. Every movement was slow and precise like a robot. The thin piece of tripe floated up and down in the red soup like a small boat struggling to survive in a stormy sea. After going up and down 8 times, it finally escaped the sea of fire, and dived into the dipping dish to swim. Then, it was fed into a big mouth that had been waiting for a long time. The crisp and chewy tripe made a crisp sound as it clashed with the teeth. It was like a beautiful melody, and one could imagine that chewy feeling. Sargeras had already closed his eyes. The tripe that was soaked in red oil and soup, and wrapped in a layer of dipping sauce. The spiciness and fresh fragrance blossomed on the tip of his tongue, and the chewy and crisp texture brought about the most wonderful feedback. What an enchanting taste! What a wonderful texture! He almost didn't know how to describe this wonderful enjoyment. A blissful smile appeared on that dignified face. A warm current flowed from the tip of his tongue, and quickly spread to his limbs and bones. Huff! A bowl of flame rose from the top of his head. The magma patterns on the surface of his body turned red, and the fiery red magma flowed slowly in those patterns. Only his hands were still normal, but he didn't realize it. Gulp. The sound of saliva being swallowed could be heard around him. There was no need for too much explanation. Sarjara's expression and actions were already better than any words. They seemed to have also felt the deliciousness and freshness of the tripe. With a mouthful of the spicy hot pot aroma, they even felt their throats burning. I actually want to eat when I see a demon eating. A young lady pinched her thigh, trying to prove if she had been bewitched by some illusion. Yes, it hurts. She sucked in a breath of cold air to confirm that she really wanted to eat it and wasn't bewitched. Mr. Mac didn't lie to me. This tripe is indeed delicious, Sarjara said with a smile as he opened his eyes. Sarjara smiled as he opened his eyes. He picked up a piece of tripe from the bowl and placed it in the pot to cook. Again. Keel and the rest also began their second and third attempts. After a few failures, Keel finally got the tripe that he had failed in the first few rounds in the pot. Although the texture was a little overcooked and less crispy, after it was soaked in the red soup, the spiciness was even better, and he was lit on fire on the spot. Huff, huff, huff. The lava demons were like human-shaped torches that were lit up one after another. They ate happily, and it felt like they were eating in a sauna room even though water was splashed and turned into ice outside. Even the surrounding customers felt a lot warmer. They looked at the group of burly lava demons clumsily holding long chopsticks, picking up all kinds of ingredients, and dipping them into the red soup pot with curiosity. However, it was such a strange and somewhat funny scene that made the surrounding people swallow their saliva. Sarjara's picked up the guide again, and read, "I beef, fat and lean, shaped like an eye, hence the name. It's as thin as paper, and as long as it's cooked in the hot pot for a while, it can be scooped out immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, the demons had already placed 10 servings of fat beef on the table. This is easy. Keel picked up a piece of fresh fat beef that was as thin as paper, and put it into the boiling soup pot. The bright red color quickly turned white, and then it was covered with a layer of beautiful red. He lifted it out of the pot, rolled the steaming fat beef in the dipping sauce, and covered it with sesame oil and sauce before putting it into his mouth. The fat beef had already absorbed the taste of the thick soup perfectly, and that tender and delicate texture was mesmerizing. It was tender and soft, and as fine as silk. After chewing it carefully, the fragrance of the meat quickly filled his entire mouth, making him unable to stop himself. Amazing! Keel opened his eyes after a long time, and said with an intoxicated expression, "All right, I've decided to eat here for lunch. I want to eat meat." The young lady pulled her best friend toward the door, and didn't forget to wipe the saliva at the corner of her mouth. This way of eating is too cruel. I can't help but tear up. Let's not look anymore. We'll eat here. A long-haired uncle pulled his best friend toward the restaurant. The customers who were attracted by the aroma couldn't help but step in after seeing the scene of Sarjara's and the others eating the hot pot, causing a small climax. Chapter 1679. Meg looked at the rapidly increasing number of people entering the restaurant in his mind, and looked toward the door in surprise. Previously, there were almost no new customers entering the restaurant. Unexpectedly, there was a small explosion. Groups of customers entered the restaurant and sat down under the guidance of the waiters, making the restaurant lively all of a sudden. The number of people entering the restaurant exceeded 300 in a short while, and it was still rising. What happened outside? So many people suddenly came in. Mia turned to look in the direction of the door with surprise, and asked Rena, who happened to wander near them. Rena was also a little surprised by the sudden increase in customers. After thinking for a while, she said with uncertainty, "Those customers who often come to the restaurant and buy a lot of Rigiamos wanted to eat the hot pot outdoors, so I asked them to arrange a table for them. They should have started eating now." I see. Those customers must have seen the Burning Legion eating the hot pot, so they couldn't help but come in to eat the hot pot. Mia was deep in thought. She looked at Meg with a smile, and said, "Boss often asks Meg to do this kind of thing, and it works every time. For the hot pot that most customers don't know about, this is indeed a good idea." Meg nodded with a smile. Rena also let the Burning Legion advertise for Mana Hot Pot by chance, and the effect was excellent. Moreover, it was equivalent to screening the customers. The customers who entered the restaurant had a strong purpose, so the ordering rate was naturally high. "Then I should thank them properly," Rena said with a smile. The customers walked into the hot pot restaurant, and their eyes lit up when they saw the hall. Bright lights illuminated the hall. It was decorated in a splendid style with fresh green decorations. Nearly 100 tables were displayed, and there were simple partitions between them. However, it didn't affect the permeability of the space at all. The restaurant was very warm, and the air was filled with the rich aroma of the hot pot. There were already more than 20 tables with customers. White steam rose from the hot pot, and the customers chatted as they ate the hot pot. While waiting for the delicacies to be cooked, the chatting became relaxed and joyful. Such an environment made people feel relaxed very quickly. Under the guidance of the beautiful and generous elven waitress, they could take a seat at their favorite table and then start ordering. To the surprise of most of the customers, the prices of the dishes in this luxurious restaurant were even lower than those in many of the restaurants in the Aiden Square. Thus, they all began to place their orders. An endless stream of customers entered the restaurant, creating a very good driving effect. The members of the Burning Legion sitting at the entrance not only successfully deterred Isaac, who wanted to intercept the customers, but also completed the mission of clearing the minds for the other customers. They only needed to stand at the side and watch for a while, and most people couldn't help but walk into the hot pot restaurant. "Let go of that duck intestine. I dropped it 3 rounds ago. Then I'll really let him go." No, put it in my bowl. If you put it down, I might not be able to find it again even if I wait another 3 rounds. The members of the Burning Legion were completely oblivious to this. They were completely immersed in the joy of hot pot. Everyone was like 6 burning torches, bringing some warmth to the surrounding guests. Of course, this did not exclude the possibility that some people were just here to warm themselves up. Isaac and the skinny man looked at this scene from across the street with melancholy. "Supervisor, what do we do now?" the skinny man asked softly. He wanted to intercept the customers, but he didn't dare to go forward. He couldn't beat them in a fight, and if he was beaten up, he couldn't even walk over and lie on the ground. "I'm too far south," Isaac said with a gloomy face. "With those gatekeepers guarding, no matter who came to Kasha Hot Pot restaurant today, it would be useless. Didn't you say in the morning that we were going to see what they are selling? Do we still want to go now?" the skinny man continued to ask. His calves were trembling as he looked at the fiery lava demon. "If we go now, wouldn't we be telling them what we want to do?" Isaac rolled his eyes at him. He stood up with the help of the bench, and said, "Help me. Let's go back to the restaurant first and ask the boss to send more people over." "All right. Take your time." The skinny man was relieved as he helped Isaac, who was limping, walk slowly in the direction of Kasha Hot Pot Restaurant. When Meg and the rest were almost done with their meal, more than half of the seats in the hall on the first floor were already filled. Steam rose up, accompanied by the chatter of the people. It was as hot as the boiling soup in the pot. Seems like I don't need to think of anything else. Meg glanced at the number of people in his mind, which had become 421/1000. It was noon now, and the hot pot restaurant's business was the busiest at night. The customers all looked very satisfied. The unique joy of hot pot, as well as the extreme deliciousness after entering their mouths, brought them a blissful and novel dining experience. The delicacies that were spread by word of mouth could bring about a very high conversion rate of new customers. Meg believed that these 400-odd customers would bring more new customers to the hot pot restaurant in the near future. Through the excellent reputation, there would be a continuous fission. "Bill, please." Meg raised his hand and gestured to the waiter. "Sir, the boss of your table said that it would be under her name. If you are done with your meal, you can leave directly," the elf waiter said with a smile as he walked up. "It's the first day of business, so it should be as much as it should be." "How can it be under the boss's name?" Meg shook his head with a smile. He took out his money bag and said, "Come, how much did our table cost?" "This." The elf waiter looked at Meg with some hesitation. He looked around, trying to find the boss, but the boss seemed to have gone upstairs. "It's a total of 1,250 copper coins. I calculated it." Amy burped. "Keep the change. The extra is a tip." Meg took out a dragon coin and 3 gold coins and handed them to the elf. Then, he took Amy's little hand and walked towards the door. The waiter took the money and didn't know whether to return it to Meg or accept it. "Aren't we going to say goodbye to Raina before leaving?" Mia took the clothes and asked Meg. "She will be very busy today. We don't want to trouble her." Meg shook his head. "Okay." Mia nodded obediently. Everyone left with Meg. Along the way, the regulars of Amy's greeted Meg and the others familiarly. They looked like popular kings. When Meg walked out, a wave of heat hit him, making him a little dazed. Are these weird uncles burning themselves to warm others? Amy looked at the members of the Burning Legion, who were burning themselves very vigorously, and was a little surprised. Air. Meg pondered. If that was the case, it didn't seem to be a problem. However, he was indeed shocked by the Burning Legion's way of eating hot pot. 6 human-shaped pillars of fire surrounded a large pot, and even the iron chair they were sitting on was scorched red. It was very fitting for the name of hot pot. Book Guest House Reading Website. Chapter 1680. Mr. Mac, did you guys just come out from hot pot? Sargeras quickly stood up when he saw Meg and the rest. Keel, Mond, and the rest also quickly stood up. Mond didn't forget to swallow the hot beef in his mouth, and looked at Meg with respect. Yes, it's the first day of business, so we came to try it out. Meg nodded with a smile, and then quickly waved his hand, and said, "You guys continue to eat. Don't mind us." He had to admit that the Burning Legion's hot pot was more eye-catching than he had imagined. The rising flames could be seen from 100 meters away. Those who didn't know would think that there was a bonfire party going on. Moreover, even if they weren't attracted by the hot pot, it didn't affect them from chatting around the fire. It was not easy to find such a large stove with a stable temperature. Their meal brought at least 200 customers to Mana Hot Pot Restaurant. Seeing that the food on the 4 trolleys was almost finished, if he were Raina, he would give them another trolley of food. The effect would be equivalent to a high-level performance team. Amy, on the other hand, had invited her friends over to play in the afternoon, so Mag parted ways with her and Mia at the restaurant's entrance. It was a rare day off, so the ladies were all prepared to go shopping and spend their wages that they had just received this month. Not long after they returned to the restaurant, Daphne and Ignatiu came together, while Jessica was sent over by her mother. After making ice cream for each child, the children went to the playground on the second floor to play. Meg, who was free, also went to the study on the second floor, and took a book about the Cthulhu mythos from the bookshelf to read. The plan to explore the Thunderstorm Mountains at night last time was cancelled because of the crisis, but they should be going there soon. Those great old ones were too evil, and a statue almost caused him to fall into their trap last time. Therefore, he didn't dare to bring Irina to the sealed land directly. He could only wait for Crassus and Julian to go together. Having two more great magic casters would at least give him more protection. Kasia looked at Isaac, who was being helped into the room, and frowned. "How did you end up like this?" Isaac smiled awkwardly and said, "I got into a conflict with a few of their customers when I was promoting our hot pot restaurant. It's just a small injury, nothing serious." "Have you found out everything about Mana Hot Pot Restaurant? How was the business on the first day of opening?" Kasia didn't care about Isaac's injury and asked directly. "Boss, after those demons injured the manager, they sat at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant and didn't let us get close." The skinny man looked at Kasia and said carefully, "I think those guys are hired thugs from Mana Hot Pot." "Idiot. I asked you to investigate their background and see what they are selling so that we can cut off their supply channels. Why did you go and fight? Are you out of your mind?" Kasia roared. The skinny man's legs trembled and he almost knelt down on the spot. "Boss, don't be angry. At first, I wanted to attract all their customers to our restaurant. Firstly, it would increase the number of customers for our restaurant. Secondly, I wanted them to have no business on the first day of opening. I didn't expect to meet those bastards," Isaac said fearfully. "Get straight to the point. How was the business?" Kasia said coldly. "Those bastards were eating hot pot at the entrance of the restaurant, and they attracted some customers instead. So far, the business is doing well. However, that hot pot restaurant is indeed related to Mamie's," Isaac said softly. "Is it really related to Mamie's?" Kasia's face became even uglier. "Yes." Isaac nodded carefully. "All right, all of you, get out. I will make a trip there personally." Kasia took his mink fur coat and walked out of the door with his secretary. Two orcs in combat attire followed closely behind. Kasia's horse-drawn carriage had just left when he lifted the curtain and saw a lively scene not far away. There seemed to be hundreds of people surrounding a bonfire. It was the newly opened Mana Hot Pot restaurant. "What's going on? Holding a bonfire party in the middle of the day. And there are so many people watching." Kasia muttered to himself with a frown. "Stop, I will walk over." Kasia spoke when they were about 100 meters away. The horse-drawn carriage stopped, and he walked towards Mana Hot Pot restaurant with his blonde secretary. There were hundreds of people gathered at the entrance of the hot pot restaurant, and there were still passers-by coming in an endless stream. There were also many customers entering and exiting the hot pot restaurant. The business was already very good on the first day of the restaurant's opening. Kasia's hot pot restaurant didn't even have such a significant flow of people when it was open for a month. "I didn't expect their business to be so good on the first day of their opening. Could it be that they also organized a big opening event?" Kasia frowned. This wasn't good news for his hot pot restaurant. As they approached the entrance of the hot pot restaurant, a fragrant and spicy aroma gradually became clear. It was a fragrance that was similar to Mamie's hot pot. Kasia found a business opportunity from Mamie's when he opened a hot pot restaurant. He was late for a friend's banquet, and was amazed by the scrumptiousness. At that time, he felt that this place was very promising. However, the price of Mamie's hot pot was very high, and it wasn't something that ordinary people could afford. Furthermore, he had his own channels to get all kinds of meat at low prices. Hence, he immediately bought a big restaurant, and got a few old chefs to go to Mamie's every day to study the hot pot base. Finally, he came up with 50% of the taste of Mamie's hot pot, and targeted the middle and low spending groups at $100 per person. Just as he had expected, after the initial period of publicity, his hot pot restaurant quickly attracted a period of explosion. Duck intestines, tripe, and other things were not worth much in the market at all. They could bring him hundreds of thousands of yuan in a day. Just as he started to look for new restaurants and was preparing to open 3 new hot pot restaurants in Chaos City, he discovered that a new hot pot restaurant had quietly opened here. Mamie's wasn't on his list of competitors. They were facing customers of a completely different level. Furthermore, his restaurant wasn't big, and could only serve a few hundred customers every day. However, this large-scale hot pot restaurant was different. As long as the boss was sane, he wouldn't compete with Mamie's. His direct competitor would be his Kasha hot pot. He heard that Bowen and his son were arrested because of this restaurant, but he didn't manage to find out who was in charge of this restaurant. He didn't expect it to be related to Mamie's. The aroma of the hot pot in the air was indeed 80 to 90% similar to Mamie's hot pot. It was much stronger than Kasha's hot pot. It was like a living advertisement in the air. After passing through the crowd, he finally saw what everyone was looking at. It wasn't a bonfire. It was a group of demons eating hot pot. They had successfully acted out what it meant to eat hot pot that would catch fire. They even made this cold winter day feel like it was scorching hot. This is freaking breaking the rules. Bookhouse reading website. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.